עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. כשעסקנו בתפילה, חציתם את התעלה, כשעליתם שוב בהר, לא חשבתם על מחר. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. אין מנוס ואין מפלט, אין לכם פשוט ברירה, אין תקווה ואין מקלט, אין כבר דרך חזרה. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. ברמה ובמדבר, באמצע יום הכיפורים, באתם בתרועת שופר, אך יצאתם בשברים. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם.
Were you surprised to see Syrian tanks so close to your unit?
We know that was a surprise because they surprised us because we were not ready for the fight, but because it was a holiday for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't make a surprise like they did today.
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 636 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Matt has survived the food poisoning of day whatever it was. Oh, let's go.
And of course, Matthew survived. And we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, some news from East Asia, and also news of the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East. We have a lot of news going on tonight, massive amounts of it, especially from inside of Ukraine, as it appears that the Ukrainians may be preparing for a winter offensive that will be coming up here within the next few weeks. But really quickly, I'd like to share with you all something that has concerned Matthew and me a little bit during our 10-minute countdown, and is showing that we may have to try and create changes to how we've been covering the news due to possible restrictions of speech that YouTube is putting onto us. During the 10-minute countdown, we tried to pin a message, and many of y'all can see the pinned message we have up right now in the live chat that says, Russian Wagner prepares to arm terrorists. And then it says, welcome back to the day 636 news, and so on. We originally were going to put up a banner inside of our live chat that specifically mentioned Hezbollah and Hamas as terrorist organizations, but when we tried to put that up as the pinned comment, YouTube would not even allow us the option, and the chats were made invisible in the live chat where neither of us could see the message that was posted by one or the other. We even tried to have Matthew copy and paste it over into my Discord so that way I could put the message into the chat and then pin it myself. Turns out that didn't work either, and so it appears that YouTube is starting to censor our ability to even mention the organizations, the terrorist organizations, that are currently attacking Israeli forces inside the Middle East. This is also leading us to believe that the reason why our streams are not reaching as far out to our viewer base as they normally have is because of the ongoing news coverage that we have on the Middle East right now. Ever since we've started to cover the ongoing conflict beginning on October 7th with the war against Hamas in Israel, it appears that YouTube has started to curb our viewership drastically. Our average live stream viewership at the peak on a normal night would have been around anywhere from 6.4 to 6.6 thousand live viewers. Ever since we started to cover the conflict in Israel, our live stream viewership has dropped down to anywhere in between 4.8 thousand to 5.3 thousand. And it appears that according to our analytical information, our videos and our live streams are getting pushed significantly less whenever there's a mention of Israel in any of our videos or our live streams. Because of this might be one of the last times that we are able to cover the Israel news on this live stream, or in any videos for that matter, because it appears that YouTube is putting down a hammer on us whenever we try and talk about this news or this topic. Nevertheless, I do thank all of y'all so much once again for always supporting this channel and enjoying our commitment and our integrity to trying to put out as much news and as detailed news as we possibly can on not just the news of the war in Ukraine, but the news outside of the war itself, moving on into places like Israel and also East Asia. We will most likely be moving entirely back into covering Ukraine war news based off of what kind of response we get tomorrow. We will be moving the Middle Eastern news segment out of our live stream entirely tomorrow and only covering the news inside of Ukraine. If we see that the stream gets pushed a lot more by YouTube and our live stream viewership begins to climb again, getting our news out to more people, we will most likely have our hand forced where we will not be able to cover Middle Eastern news any longer. This is something that I'm not necessarily happy about at all, considering that I believe that news like this is incredibly important to cover, and not only that, many news organizations are not giving the proper kind of coverage and giving all of the details that we have been seeing so far on this channel and have been publishing in our daily news reports. Nevertheless, we are going to continue on our live stream tonight as normal, covering all of the news from every single segment that we can. The East Asian news, the Ukrainian news, as well as the Middle Eastern news. So moving on from our little bit of a pressing announcement, I'd also like to thank the Lee Spring Army for raising $9,064 exactly for Revived Soldiers of Ukraine over Sunday night. Absolutely incredible stuff. That is
impressive.
And absolutely amazing. I got to thank every single one of y'all so much for helping out with saving lives of Ukrainian soldiers for Revived Soldiers of Ukraine. They've been doing amazing work, and not only that, y'all have been incredible with the kindness and efforts that y'all have given to support Ukraine so far in the war effort. And speaking of that war effort, it appears that they have finally won over Russian forces within the city of Avdiivka area. Russian forces have drastically taken a drop in casualty rates over the past 48 hours, and not only that, we are seeing no frontline changes in the area of Avdiivka for an entire 48 hours, indicating that the Russian offensive has completely lost its cohesion, and we're most likely not going to be seeing any major Russian offensives within that area of the front line moving here forward. It is very big news. Of course, we still see combat actions happening in the area, but at a much more slowed rate, and not only that, we are seeing no frontline gains whatsoever. We're going to be moving on into that news immediately, starting off with video clips in the northern area of Avdiivka, as this appears to be the main pincer of the Russian offensive meant to encircle the city of Avdiivka, and it appears to have ended in an abysmal failure over the past 48 hours. To quickly move y'all into the casualty reports, however, to once again back this up with statistical information, we have seen that Russian losses have dropped from around 1,200 to 1,100 a day down to about 600, and this seems to have been consistent over the past 2 days. It appears to also...
man, they've cut that number in half of what it used to be. And also, only one Bobcat, man. What happened?
What the hell happened?
So low.
What the hell happened? But only one Bobcat was lost. It's almost 1,100, though. Only 2 Bobcats away. But notice, Matthew, how low the losses were in the past 24 hours in every single category. 610 Russian troops lost, 6 armored personnel carriers, 7 supply trucks, 0 tanks, 4 artillery pieces, 7 drones, 0 MLRSs, and 1 cruise missile destroyed. Those losses indicate that the Russians have largely disengaged from fighting probably along the entirety of the front lines, and these kinds of losses are what we're seeing as a minimum from Russian forces at this point in the war.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, what's causing it? Is it because of the winter weather, or is there something else going on?
From what we're getting, it's mostly because the Russian forces have lost cohesion in the Avdiivka area, and they may have stopped all actions along all parts of the front, all the way from Kupiansk and down to Kherson, to try and reorganize forces as best as possible and allow them a little bit of a refreshing rate. You know, that's the best way I can explain it in terms of information, you know, but probably some kind of a refreshing rate that they're allowing Russian forces so that way they can try and mount defensives again. And I think this is once again a shift of Russian strategic thinking from that of a never-ending offensive into that of a more so of an attritional defense. We can see that Russian forces will never be able to mount an effective offensive operation at this point. We've seen failures just over the past 2 months in the areas of Kupiansk, in the area of Avdiivka, Volodar, and also the counterattack that they tried to conduct near the direction of Robotny. It seems as though across the entire front line, the Russians are no longer able to mount any kind of offensives that can gain ground. And I think the Russians are starting to move into that strategic thinking they had at the beginning of this year, where instead of attacking the Ukrainians, they're just going to try and hold all of this ground and force the Ukrainians into multiple offensives that, in the Russians' minds, will hopefully wear down Ukrainian armed forces to the point that they will eventually force the hand of the Ukrainian government to give up in the war. That's what I'm thinking their strategic focus is starting to move towards, because in the Avdiivka area, we can see that over the past 48 hours, all of the clips are showing terrible things happening to the Russian army. Starting off with our first clip, we saw that the Ukrainians started to launch cluster strikes onto Russian positions. And not only that, this footage, this infrared footage, or more so, what the hell is this called, Matthew? It's not infrared, it's thermal. Yeah, it's thermal. This thermal camera is showing us something very interesting as well about the fighting that's been happening in this northern area. Notice the amount of crater holes that we can see on the thermal camera. It's a lot.
It's a pretty good bit of blood.
I mean, this thing looks like a chocolate chip cookie right now, and it's showing that the amount of artillery fire that the Ukrainians have brought against Russian forces in this area has been astronomically high, especially compared to other areas outside of the Battle of Bakhmut. And I think this is showing that the Russians have just been overwhelmed so greatly by the Ukrainian defense that they just really can't mount an offensive anymore. And it appears that even still, the Ukrainians are using their cluster bombs, like in this clip, to wipe out whatever the Russians have left. And we can see in this clip right here that normal spread of salt and pepper that the M777s lay down with those 155mm shells over and over again onto this tree line.
They start with the pepper, then the Russians get salty, and then you have salt and pepper. And also, what's up with this Instagram tag at the top left? Do you see the name up there on this?
Good work.
Agent 47.
Oh, man. I love to see it. And I gotta say, absolutely incredible stuff to watch that the Ukrainians are once again hammering Russian positions. And with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news in the area of Avdiivka and on into our next clip in the northern front, where we also got to see a Leopard 2 in operation near this area of the front lines. And I have a feeling that the brigades that were shifted by the Ukrainians from the area of Robotny and up into Avdiivka have had a massive impact on the losses that Russian forces have been taking in this area. And not only that, probably has been leading the Russians into this failed offensive altogether. Leopard 2 A6s are some of the best protected tanks that the Ukrainians have in their inventory right now to be able to fight against the Russians, and they've moved the entire brigade that uses them, which is the 47th Brigade, or otherwise called the Magura. They've moved them up there into the area of Avdiivka, and we can see that these Leopard 2s on film have been putting in work. They've been leveling Russian forces in the area of Avdiivka ever since the offensive began nearly about 2 weeks after its start, and it seems that they may have actually been a large contributing factor to a Russian failure in this offensive. But moving on from that neat little picture and on into our next one, we can also see some Russian vehicles moving around near the Avdiivka coke plant in incredibly large numbers. This was filmed on the 20th of November, but published today. But you see a Russian looking out of some kind of a viewport on an armored vehicle. Well, actually, this is a brick house. And we can see Russian tanks with coke cages moving around outside. Once again, no space.
Dog barking?
I can't tell. I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's a wrong.
Давай, блядь, телефон нахуй, блядь. Давай телефон, говорю. А? Я, телефон дай, говорю.
We can also hear a jet flying over.
Пидоры, везут.
We don't see it.
А они что-то блядь.
And when you see a BMP-2 laden with Russian infantry following the Russian tank column as the video ends. This video appears to have come from the area near the Avdiivka coke plant. Sadly, we weren't able to get exact geolocation on this, but from what I'm able to tell, it looks like this video was possibly taken somewhere around here. We know that Russian forces have made it all the way up to the railroad berm that it splits their forces from the Ukrainians inside of the Avdiivka coke plant over here, but we haven't seen them move across yet, and I don't think they will. I think these are just some general shifts of Russian forces in the area and not indicative of any kind of an actual offensive that was going to be mounted. But moving on to our next clip, we can also see the tree line near the railroad berm after an assault took place, or more so a Russian barrage, and it has turned into the Somme battlefield from World War I. An insane sight to see. Every single tree in this tree line has been cut in half and has pretty much ceased to exist.
Кук, пару слов історії. Це не ті слова.
Sounds like he's a little shaken up by it.
Улипка. Улипка.
We see another Ukrainian soldier hopping up.
О, воїн сразу видно.
It's insane how 100 years later, battlefields can still end up looking like they're from World War I. But that's the end of the clip, and of course showing the absolute intensity of the artillery barrages that have been occurring in the area around Avdiivka, specifically its northern flank. And as we move further down and towards the eastern side of Avdiivka, we can also see that the Russian forces have still continued to take minor losses, for example, the loss of a tank due to actions of the 47th Magura. When you see them dropping the bomb right there, we can see the tank outlined right there, we can see it explode, and it looks like the drone may have been enveloped by a little bit of the explosion right there, but still survived. We can now see in normal camera footage the end result of that T-72, and it appears that the explosion was so strong, it ended up blowing away the roof of the engine bay. Of course, beautiful to see, a Russian tank getting destroyed so thoroughly, where it'll never be used again. We're now moving on to our next clip, where we also get to see a Russian Grad battery getting hit by a HIMARS. And this isn't the only thing that was hit by a HIMARS today. I'll be showing y'all something in the Location Unknowns that's hilarious in a little bit. Chad music ensues. But we can see the Grad right there. This is Grad number 1. We can see Grad number 2 right there. And now we can see HIMARS rocket number 1 hit the first one and destroy it completely. We're about to see Grad rocket number 2 come in and take out the second one. That one was just a little bit off, but it did damage the Grad. And the Ukrainians are Grad for anything, you know. But we can see the next Grad right here also damaged as well. And that's the end of the clip. But the damage that was sustained by that HIMARS strike onto the Grad battery will be ensuring that it is not operational probably for several days, if not several weeks. Moving on from that and into our next clip near Avdiivka, we got to see a bit of footage from the southern end of the city as the Russians continued a small skirmish in this area yesterday. Here's the clip. We hear the sounds of heavy firefights occurring all around the cameraman. And with that, that's the end of that clip. And funnily enough, we actually got to know exactly where that clip was from. It was geolocated, and it appears that it came from the area right around here. somewhere in this complex of industrial buildings, or more so near this one, which you can actually see a little bit in the clip. You can see this part of the building. Let me go back. Well, actually, not. You know what? I'm not going to go back and show that. Y'all can go back and look at it if y'all want. But moving on from that and into our next clip on the southern end of Avdiivka, we did get to see that Ukrainian forces were able to hit more Russian infantry, this time in an interesting way, with a kamikaze drone. And not only that, they did some pretty good aerobatics with it before they hit the Russian forces. And we can see the Russians right there trying to shoot it down, hiding behind a knocked out tank, and the drone comes right down on top of them. They weren't able to take it out, and it took out the infantry unit instead.
You know, the dumb part is they saw it coming. They literally stood right next to the tank the entire time. That one guy right there was going to dodge it. Like, he was just going to hop out of the way.
Dude, look at him. He thinks it's dodgeball. He's going, whoop, 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 whoop. He's like, let me just scoot over a little. But that's
I think I might catch it, Bliat. Maybe catch the drone. That'll save me.
Dude, the New York Mets were watching this guy and they said, hire this man. Hire this man. But anyways, moving on from this little clip, nice to see the FPV drone taking out a little Russian squad. We're now moving on into our next clip near Opitny, where we got to see the 47th Brigade hunting down some Russians. And so, here's the clip. And I'll be muting it. But we can see them throwing in the intro card. The 47th loves to do some nice animated work. And we can now see
They're getting fancy with them, too. It's like a 3D intro now, instead of like those little card intros they used to have.
Yeah, I mean, like, they are getting pretty complex with them. And we can see that they're putting up an occupant, something, and also 200. Y'all all know what that means. Watch. There he is. They're all shooting.
They are shooting.
They are shooting, but they're about to get it here in a second. Here comes the drone, and we can see 200s right before our eyes. Oh, and they asked a question down there at the bottom of the screen. I don't know what the question was. I think that's captions for the Russians. I don't know how they got those. Apparently they're good lip readers, but we can see another drone coming on in.
I can tell you a little bit about it. They said, are we going to win the war? And they said, no, Bliat. Oh, damn.
That's it. Don't worry. It's going to get way worse. But we can see another drone come down. This one kind of missed most of the infantry group, but it still rattled them a little. And we can see our 200s. Oh, and we can see 200 number 3. Oh, look at that. This Russian unit got it. And the red armbands really accentuate the losses. But with that, that's the end of that clip. Of course, the 47's very proud of their actions they were able to take in the area today, making sure that Russian forces remember that their morale is supposed to be low. Speaking of low morale, some of y'all might be wondering, you know, what do the Russians do to raise spirits, you know, out there on the battlefield? There's got to be some kind of like a USO show that they do, or something like that. Well, they kind of do, but the Ukrainians have a tendency of wanting to rain on these parades because, you know, propaganda boosting, no matter how lame it looks, it does end up boosting the propaganda. Oh, well, not the propaganda, but the morale just a little bit. So the Ukrainians decided today to rain on this one particular parade that the Russians were having somewhere in Donetsk or Luhansk, because they brought a whole bunch of Russians that were on leave into an auditorium and had that mandatory fun that everyone in the military likes. They had them sit through a little concert about Russian patriotism and pride and all that kind of stuff. And of course, you know, it's filled with your normal cringy moments. But the Ukrainians shut it all down. A HIMARS rocket ended up striking near to the building, almost on top of it, and knocked out the power. Here's the clip of that happening inside the building.
Oh, that was probably a blessing that the power got cut out, because that was not sounding that great.
You know, it was sounding pretty bad. I have a feeling that the Russians' ears were spared, but the building's electrical supply was not. The electrical supply was knocked out immediately. Just look at this. And I love the sound of breaking glass as soon as the power goes out. It just adds to the chaos.
Easy, comrades. It's just a storm. Sit down.
Wait, man. The Russians said, sounds like someone's breaking in. And then the Russian commissar said, is this a storm, Dick? Sit down. But anyway.
Right.
But anyways, nice to see them raining on the parade. Anyways, speaking of which, it's time for us to go through all the location unknowns, because that was a pretty good one, but there's a decent amount of good ones. Starting off with our first one, we got to see a picture of nighttime on the Ukrainian front lines. And it looks so nice, you know? So beautiful out there. You can see all the stars, mostly because the electrical grid has been knocked out in this area of the country, so, you know, the night skies are pretty brilliant. But beyond that, it is really neat to see. And you can see this Ukrainian soldier standing right at the front of this M777, enjoying the night sky. What a picture. Moving on from that and into our next little bit of location unknown news, we got to see that Baba Yaga has gotten an upgrade. Baba Yaga! And it's a really impressive upgrade. It's one that takes a lot of ingenuity and thinking to come up with, although it seems really simple. They've turned Baba Yaga into a small drone carrier. The Baba Yaga can carry a drone as far as it can go, and the Baba Yaga has an incredibly long range. And they also mounted a relay onto Baba Yaga, so that way it can drop off a Mavic in the middle of its flight, at the max of Baba Yaga's range, and then the Mavic can travel even further, extending the range that their conventional drone forces can conduct strikes on the battlefield with. It's really cool looking. Check this out. We can see the Baba Yaga down there. We can see it drop off the Mavic, and there goes the Mavic on its way out even farther than the Baba Yaga could go.
They must have modified the Mavic or something, because I don't know how they have the antenna range to actually reach that far out with the smaller one. Because I know they're trying to get the battery range farther, but how do they get the signal farther?
Well, what's really cool is that they get the signal to extend farther by adding a relay onto the top of Baba Yaga. So Baba Yaga acts as like the communication station in between the drone and the operator. Really cool, right?
Ah, Baba Yaga has made itself useful. It's no longer ugly, it's smart.
Man, Baba Yaga became a freaking monster for real, man. Like, the Russians gonna look up and go, oh, hey, it's no big worry. It's unarmed. It has no bombs. And then they see it drop 3 drones. Baba Yaga! And then they freak out, you know? But really cool stuff and a neat technological innovation for sure. Moving on from that, we also got to see, for the first time ever, a Chinese... I wanted to call it an ATV, but then I ended up just calling it like a cart, like a go-kart. But we saw for the first time a Chinese, like, go-kart, like, ATV thing show up on the front lines. And the first thing the Russians did with it was run one of their own guys over. And you can see it in the clip. They drop the guys off out of the back of the thing, and then he runs one of them over because he didn't even wait for them to get out of the way. Watch. And they run him over. Oh. Dude, busted that guy's hips. That guy is not getting discharged either, but interesting to see a Chinese... Like, what would you call that, Matthew? A mule?
I guess you could call it like an ATV, but it's Chinese, so you can call it Bing Shiling.
Bing Shiling. But we can see
Alibaba Express.
An Alibaba Bing Chilling out here on the front lines, and the first thing it does is breaks a Russian's kneecaps. Look at that. Boing. Oh, you know that had to hurt. You know, he's probably not that wounded from it, but that had to hurt like hell. But anyways, that's the end of that little clip. And it's now time for us to move on out of our location unknown news. And really quickly, I'm going to be sharing with y'all a story that we actually put in our title tonight. And a lot of y'all are probably wondering, what the hell? You know, like we were just covering a thing about a Chinese ATV. But our title didn't say anything about that. It was talking about a Chinese ship on fire. Or a Chinese ship burning, more so. And you know something? That requires us to go over into the area of the East China Sea. Not the South China Sea that many of y'all have heard and know about and love, but the East China Sea, a little less talked about. But what we saw today was something very interesting. And I've seen some people saying what people have been told to believe by the Chinese government, but the pictures show a very different story, at least from what we were able to tell. It appears that a Chinese Type 071 amphibious landing ship was seen off the coastline today in a roaring blaze. Now, some people are going to say, because this is the official Chinese story that came out today, the enforcer, the ship isn't ablaze, it's just a test of the ship's smoke screens. But there's a problem with that. Smoke screens burn white. That's almost a standard. You never see smoke screens that burn like this very putrid black color. That's something that indicates that something really is on fire inside of the ship. And we can see what appears to be two noticeable fires on the ship's superstructure that appear to be coming out of it, and then some kind of a smoke plume that's coming from the very bow of the ship. We don't know what that one is, but these appear to be inside the superstructure itself, and may indicate that there is some kind of a fire that is ravaging the ship, although the Chinese have not given any information at all beyond their statement that it was just a test of the smoke screens. But here's the video. And we can see the ship kind of moving along a little bit in the water, very little. It's like moving at slow speed. And when you see the smoke plumes continuing to burn. Now, what we understand...
I'm sure the Chinese at this point are wanting everyone to believe this is simply the ship under full load, like full throttle. This is full steam ahead, and there's the steam.
Yeah, Matthew. The Chinese are going, calm down. You calm down. It was a misinput. A misinput. But what we know about the ship is very interesting. It is a Type 071 amphibious landing ship. They're fairly new, just put into service in 2007, the first of its class. And in naval standards, that is an incredibly new ship. It's under, it's under 20 years old. It's about 15 years old at this point, and they have 9 of these things. Here's a picture of it when it's not enveloped in flames. Now, what's very interesting about this is that if we get a top-down view, let me see if I can get a top-down view of this ship. Let me go pull it up on the second screen real quick. Type 071. Let's see here. And let me see if I can get some schematics of this thing or a top-down.
Also,
picture.
our in-house ship expert, Walter A. Lakota Jr., said, tell the Enforcer it looks like the Chinese ship had a turbo fire, which got out of control. Man, I'll have to trust you on that one, because that must be a massive turbo on an engine that size, and surely that would cause the smoke to be that large as well.
And let's see here. We finally got a picture of the bow of the ship. So here we have it. So looking at this, and also thank you, Walter, for sharing that with us, because that probably is what happened. I would put money on it, considering that you are one of our ship experts in the chat. There's also, and I can't forget to mention, Rob Eisman. Both of y'all I consider to be some of our top experts on maritime topics in our stream. But we can see the front of the ship, and it doesn't really appear like there would be anything. And let me take a look at this again. Let's go take a look at the video a second time. It appears that this fire is coming from nearly directly on the bow. It almost seems like it's coming from right under the anchor chain mounts on the hull, on the bow of the ship. I don't really know what would have caused that, but it's still very interesting to see that the other 2 fires are coming from the superstructure. This one appears to actually be venting. And when I say this one, I mean the one in the middle. It almost appears to be venting out of this open side where there appears to be some kind of an away boat stored. It almost seems like it's coming out of there. And the one on the stern, if we can get a good look, looks like it could be coming out of the rear part of the superstructure near where the helicopter storage hangar is. Although we really can't tell that too well. Nevertheless, it's very interesting to see that an amphibious landing ship may have caught on fire today. It appears that the fire may have been incredibly severe, but the Chinese government is not giving any additional information on what happened to that ship. Beyond that, that's the only video that we have, the only information we have at the moment, so really it's very open to speculation on what that fire is, what kind of damage may have been caused, or if you believe any damage was caused to the ship at all. That's really entirely up to y'all at this point, because there's not enough information to work off of rather than that video. But moving on out of that news and back into Ukraine, it's now time for us to cover something a little wild and a little interesting. The Germans have announced a massive support package for the Ukrainian armed forces. It is 1.4 billion US dollars. A huge number, especially for the Germans. And according to what we were able to find today, it will include 4 additional Iris-Ts, 155mm tank shells, and anti-tank mines, just to mention a few of the things that will be sent in the aid package. It's incredibly nice to see that the Germans are pledging a massive amount of support, and hopefully we'll see that unlike other aid packages, this support actually does make it to Ukraine. The Germans actually have a tendency to pledge a large amount of support like this in bulk, but the reality is that something along only 45% of all of their pledged support has actually made it to Ukraine, as compared to other countries like the United States, where nearly 90% of our pledged support has made it to Ukraine. But moving on from that news, we also heard that apparently the stop on U.S. support may actually be over at this point, and more support may be on its way to help out Ukraine, as a $100 million support package, a smaller one, but still an important one, was announced today that will be sending over more HIMARS ammunition, as well as basic artillery ammunition for systems like the M777 and other 155mm artillery pieces. While a small package, it is a clear sign that the U.S. government is beginning to become unstuck from its support or lack of support on Ukraine, and it appears that the gateways may open again for massive amounts of U.S. support to continue, so that way Ukraine can continue to fight this war against the Russians and destroy the Russian armed forces in the field. Moving on out of the international news and back into the Russian news, we also got to see something really interesting today happen deep inside of Russian lines at the port of Novorossiysk. Inside of Novorossiysk, some partisans attacked the Russian FSB building with a kamikaze drone. Here's the clip. I'm going to be muting the rock music. Dude, what do you think about that music? Chavash That's what I think. But anyways, you see the drone flying through the city of Novorossiysk?
Also, I saw in the live chat that Clyde said, hello, Enforcer Matt. He took a hiatus for a while, and today he suffered Enforcer withdrawal symptoms. Well, Clyde, I have to tell you, the Enforcer withdrawal symptoms are rough, I gotta say. But also, you're getting your fix, so I'm glad you're here.
And we are glad you are here as well, Clyde. And I hope that the symptoms continue to deteriorate over time as you get introduced back into our show. But we can see
recovering.
He's recovering. He is getting back into nature. But we can see right here, the partisans were able to hit the FSB building in Novorossiysk, and hopefully that'll be hurting them just a little bit more. But moving on from that, and also really quickly, Absolutely Scrumptious said something that really hit home for me. He said, War Thunder players, rise up. We know this map, and y'all do, because Novorossiysk is an actual map for the ground forces in War Thunder. Quick little rabbit hole. The battlefield map in Novorossiysk consists of everything from the Mikhail Kutuzov area around back here. That's about where the map ends, and it spans all the way around over here onto this side of the harbor and ends about over here. And it's split up into 3 separate maps. I know many of y'all don't even know what I'm talking about, but considering that I saw that Absolutely Scrumptious is a War Thunder player, I had to rep the set. It is a map in War Thunder. There's actually 3 separate maps and an air map, but we're getting ahead of ourselves here, and we're going down something that doesn't even matter. We gotta cover the news. That's the most important thing. And so we're going to be moving out of Novorossiysk and on into our next clip inside of Russia, where we got to see that some very well-minded people in Ukraine were able to attack a Russian little sat, an anti-air detection radar. Take a look. This is inside of the Kursk Oblast.
Oh, that's a mad owl. He has a blade.
And we're going to be muting the BBC Channel 1 intro music, and we're just going to be allowing the little clip right here. And the bing! And we can see the radar system get hit, and that is an old radar. Oh my god, that's like from the 70s with how old that design is. And we can see another radar getting hit. Dude, this drone is just flying over and going, bink, bink. There goes $30 million, another $20 million. But anyways, beautiful to see, and hopefully this will be blinding the Russian air defenses in that area for a short while. But moving on from that, it is now time for us to get on into the rest of the frontline news inside of Ukraine. Starting off in the area of Kupiansk. We got to see up here that while frontline changes are not happening at all, and the Ukrainians are holding their own in the defensive, they have been able to hit Russian forces and continue to make sure that they aren't able to do their thing. But y'all see that right there. We're just going to be quietly moving on from that into our next clip, where we got to see a KS-19 gun covered in snow. As y'all may know,
that looks like it could be a screensaver or something. That's cool.
Man, hang on, Matthew. Let me think. But we can see here a 100mm anti-aircraft gun. That's a whopper right there. A 100mm gun for an anti-aircraft. I mean, that's something. But we can see it sitting here on a Tatra truck chassis. This is a part of the 241st Independent Brigade of the TDFs, and it's just sitting here in the snow. But what's very important to get from this picture is that the first snowfall has happened in Ukraine over the past 2 days, and that is starting to show that the Razbutitsa season is going to start taking a back seat probably within the next 2 weeks. With the snowfall, that means very cold temperatures, and that means that the ground is going to start solidifying with the permafrost. That also means that the slushy ground conditions that we've been seeing for the past about a month or so are going to be ending in those next 2 weeks, and a Ukrainian offensive will most likely begin. We can see that the Russians are, of course, switching their strategic focus back into a defensive, and this means that it is now within the Ukrainians' court to try and conduct an offensive of their own against Russian forces. And that means that that window will begin probably in about 2 to 3 weeks' time. But with that, we're now moving on into our next clip near Kurtimivka, where we got to see that a Turkish Kerpi was stuck in the mud. And when I say stuck, I mean it's drowning in the mud. And we see the soldiers also drowning in the mud as well.
To a southerner, this would be a good time. This would be like hog heaven, as they say right here.
Man, you know some guy's about to be saying, Jebediah, get that damn tow hitch on that tree. but we can see them fighting with the mud. Oh, man, that's tough.
Oh, that is thick.
Look at that. And also, when the video started, this guy was knee-deep in the mud, and that's a road.
Man, that was unwise to drive that truck through that road. I'm sure they probably didn't have anywhere else to go, but jeez, man, that's going to be tough to get that unstuck.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think this Kerpi is going to end up getting abandoned because I don't even think a recovery vehicle is going to be able to get to it. Like my honest take. But anyways, we're going to be moving on from that little clip and on into our next one, now down near the area of Zalaman, where we got to see, sadly, the Russians captured something. They captured the West's finest armored personnel carrier in the 1960s, the M113. I know many of y'all are very sad about this, and this does mean technically that the Russians have won the war. But alas, everyone, I can assure you that while the Russians may have won the war if it was in the 1960s in Vietnam, they did not win the war in Ukraine by capturing this M113. But I will show y'all the clip.
Бредли называется.
Wait, did this city just call it a Bradley? Hang on.
Бредли называется.
He just called it a Bradley. This guy is so stupid. It's a freaking box. What does this look like, a Bradley? Hang on. Hold up. Let me
roast him, man.
Hold up, man. We're gonna have to go off on this man because how the hell? Oh my God! Wait, hang on. Hold up, everyone. Hold up. I gotta go get pictures. I gotta go pick pictures to back myself up here. Okay. How does this look like this? How in the world do you even mix that up? You gotta be an idiot. Look at this. It's a box. It's a box with wheels. This is a classy design. It's got a turret. It's got angled armor on all sides. It's got more road wheels. It's a bigger vehicle.
I'm not a super expert in military equipment, but I can tell the difference between those two. Like, this guy's not looking like with his eyes whatsoever.
Anyone could tell the difference. But he's gonna say he's gonna say it's a Bradley. Listen to that.
Бредли называется.
He says a Bradley. Oh my God! Someone needs to take this man out behind the barn and put him down because he's obviously sick or something to get that wrong.
Jeez.
Такая херня.
He's going to take a look inside of our very M113-esque looking Bradley.
Ну, типа наши МДМ-ки только.
I mean, the Russians have won the war. I mean, if they believe this is a Bradley, then damn it, it's a Bradley.
А, чё? Коробка у нее, по-моему, тоже.
You now see him climbing in and taking a look. And when you see the driver position and the commander's position for this Bradley.
And that little seat's been worn in a good bit.
Man, that little seat's been used. That's it.
Короче, как-то так. Опа.
Opa. We got ourselves a Bradley blade. I feel so proud of Mother Russia and the great Bradley that we were able to capture. We will win this war by lack of God, blade. Oh man, blade, I cannot believe that we captured such amazing weapon system with the invincible 50 caliber machine gun mounted on top with no protection whatsoever. I mean, hell, look at this. This one is in middle of museum, блядь, in 1960s condition, because the sick Americans had M3 Bradleys all the way back in 1960s in Vietnam. Oh, блядь, we've won the war, блядь. But so, you know, we're gonna move on from that clip. That drives me crazy to see someone misidentify something that badly, either deliberately or unintentionally. That was still stupid. Moving on from that, we can also see the 12th Azov Special Forces Brigade hitting some Russian forces in the Kremenna Forest. Oh, we've got that.
Oh.
We've got that American soldiers just entered the Middle East music in a movie.
I like how the Ukrainians are trying to like incorporate Middle Eastern stuff into their videos now, like even the music.
Oh my god! No spacing. Everyone was harmed in the making of this video. We already know these guys are about to get it. We can see the next shell land. And we now see the Russians running with no spacing whatsoever towards a destroyed T-90M. And we can now see the Ukrainians calling in artillery right on top of them. And you're taking my life, you're absolutely right. I can see where they would try and make it out to be an Abrams.
You're taking my life. That one caught me off guard a little bit. I was like, well, what? I was like, is that a username? Then I remembered, oh, that's right. That's one of our viewers.
That's an old guard, by the way. But you're taking my life! That's what the Ukrainians are doing.
That's very dramatic.
That's what the Ukrainians are doing to the Russians right now. And we can see the artillery still effectively slamming into Russian forces down there and wiping the squad out thoroughly. Of course, no spacing, and that always helps out with the Ukrainians' job. Ooh! Very accurate. Well, that's the end of the clip. We can see the Azov Brigade's emblem right there, once again signaling that the work of the Azov is done for today. But tomorrow is a new day, and it holds many new and great opportunities. Like, for example, this Russian took this day as an opportunity to hit a failed FPV drone attack with a shovel. Now, you know, that doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense, but that's what happened. Here's the clip. You can see the camera looking down at a Russian trench. And you see the FPV drone hit right there in front of the little dugout that the Russians had, and oddly enough, it's one of the few times it didn't explode. So what does Ivan decide to do? He decides to grab the drone. He comes out of the bunker, and he starts smacking the FPV drone with a shovel.
What the hell?
And then another Ivan comes out, and then he flips it, and then they go walking away. Now, many
he was
of you...
smacking like, damn, you were supposed to blow up and hit me. Oh, man.
Dude, he's like, watch this, man. He's like, you stupid, ugh, you're supposed to send me home. Please, come out here.
Man. Let's examine the psychology here. The Russians looking at the drone like, Bliat, you were supposed to accomplish a goal, Bliat. I see myself in you.
You may have been Ukraine's biggest success, but you were my biggest failure. Anyways, moving on from that clip and on into our next one, we also got to see the 7th Brigade firing their improvised MLRS at Russian forces in the area as well. Whoa, they've got the heavy metal out here, and they're about to be flinging heavy metal at Russians. Here's their Toyota Tacoma. I'm just kidding. I don't know what kind of truck it is, but we can see their 127mm rockets ready to go. Excuse me, do I see politics in the chat? That's not allowed here.
Hey, no politics. Cut that out.
Hey, what the hell is going on around here?
Be a good critter, not rabid.
We now see their little truck here firing.
Like that little bounce that the truck does. Oh, what was that?
What cheapers.
That looked nasty.
Let's see here. He was aboard. He was bored. Oh. And then the Ukrainians are like, oh, damn, it's a bird. They start packing up. We see them getting the truck ready to leave. And now we can see the cameraman making a run for it. We see this man hopping in the support truck that carries some of the crew around. He's like, go, go, go. And then they do a little drive-by. And we can now see those MLRS rockets impacting in the distance thanks to their spotter drone. Look at these strikes.
Wow. He said that like you're on an infomercial, like ShamWow. Look at that absorption. Wow. Slapchop, you're gonna like my nuts.
Oh my god, I was about to say that, man. I was gonna go, wow, you're gonna love my nuts. Slapchop, look, boom, salad, boom. You know, or whatever the hell he was doing in the clip. And when you see the grad rockets have a wide spread, but they're hitting the general area they were supposed to. That's the end of the clip, and we're now going to be moving on from that one and on into our next one, which is down in the southern area near Klishkivka, where we got a little video from our folks over at United 24, where they talked about the Azov assault units. Pretty cool stuff, and we also got a soldier here named after Quebec in Montreal. Here's the clip.
My name is Denis Quebec. I am 27 years old, 9 of which I am a professional soldier and firearms training instructor. I served in the Special Operation Forces but had to retire due to injuries. I also worked in a PMC in Afghanistan. When the full-scale war began, I
Wait a minute, what? A PMC in Afghanistan? That's it.
Turned to the front lines, and now I am heading to one of the hottest front lines, Kreminna, where the legendary Azov is stationed. To talk to fighters, visit their new positions, and analyze their latest operation in this patch of the front line. As you can see, we are in fact right now in Kreminna. You can witness the scale of intense battles currently taking place. All the trees have been chopped down, shattered by shrapnel. The trenches are dug in sand. The terrain is sandy, so they get filled in. Intense shelling is happening on regular basis. For several months now, Azov has been fighting near Kreminna, and it's an entirely different battlefield compared to the dense urban environment in Mariupol. Now Azov's positions are in the forest. On this part of the front line, the Russians have concentrated over 100,000 soldiers and around 500 various artillery systems. This is approximately the same number of troops that the Soviet Union operated during the entire Afghan war. Combat in the forest is a unique skill and experience, because there are battles at sea, battles in cities, battles in forestation lines, and then there are battles in the forest. But before the whole brigade had to take up positions, Azov soldiers forced an extremely difficult task, despite the enemy's numerical advantage. In military terms, it sounded like this.
On August 23rd, we conducted a pre-planned offensive operation with elements of raid actions aimed at improving tactical position on the defense line of one of our battalions.
Simply put, the Azov soldiers had to strengthen the front line.
The task was set by the brigade commander Friend Redis, and it was to secure more advantageous positions and halt any further enemy breakthrough in our direction. Therefore, we needed to impose our game. We needed to counterattack.
Before the attack, the enemy's position was surveilled using drones and ground reconnaissance. Then the Azov commanders developed a plan for assault actions and practiced it during training exercises.
During the preparation, we created complete terrain mock-ups. We also practiced assaults on trenches, dugouts, and other scenarios and training grounds. Additionally, we honed our ability to manage groups using UAVs.
Such preparations are important not only because of numerical advantage of Russians. The enemy is capable of learning and can be extremely dangerous.
They have eyes in the sky at all times. When we arrived, I thought they would have some kind of tactical smoke breaks when they wouldn't fly. But it was like a carousel. One drone takes off, and as soon as it runs out of power, another one replaces it immediately, allowing it to return for charging. They continuously observed everything.
The thing is, on this front there are elite landing troops, the best motorized infantry units, and fighters from private military companies.
I had a funny moment when we evacuated the wounded, around 5 in the morning. The sun was just rising. We were driving, the sun was shining through the pine trees, and I said, "Damn, it's so beautiful in here." And
Damn, man, he woke up and he said, "Damn, son, where'd you find this?"
I love it.
Man, I'd love to see it, man. I'd love to see it. But anyways, back to the clip.
that's when the shelling started. Now, it's not that beautiful. Let's go. The enemy snarls, the enemy is tough and doesn't match the delusional image created by the media. We've had direct firefights with them, and they're quite serious guys. Overall, it was an interesting experience to engage in combat with them.
Azov fighters constantly master attack and defense actions at training grounds with all possible weapons.
Is everything clear? The first group advances.
Now, really quickly, I will have to say one thing. He said that they're not as easy fighters as the media makes out the Russians to be, which is to be stupid and incompetent, which we also do on this channel. But there's a little bit of a difference with what's going on in the Kremenna forest, as well as in the area of, say, Robotne, that you're not seeing across most front lines. The 12th Azov Brigade is going up directly against the Spetsnaz. The Spetsnaz is deployed in the Kremenna forest area at the moment, and it's one of the few Russian units that has any kind of proper training or cohesion. It's one of the few places on the front lines where Ukrainian soldiers are actually going to be going up against forces that may be close to par or even on par with other Ukrainian forces they're fighting against. So while that's true for the Kremenna forest, it still isn't necessarily true for battlefields like Avdiivka, where Russian forces are dying in incredibly large amounts, and we can visibly see on film that they they lack proper training or any kind of unit cohesion.
The elimination subunit deploys to the front, engages in combat, and begins to withdraw in rapid bursts. The machine gun engages at the same time.
Coherence of actions is the key to success. All the fighters who participated in the operation were divided in advance into several assault groups with different tasks.
Every group had its own task. One of them had to carry out raid actions. The second group had to execute a distraction maneuver. And the third one inflicted the main attack on the enemy's positions.
At first, the brigade artillery covered the enemy with fire. After that, the assault troops went into battle.
The fighters were not just motivated. They had a burning desire to kill the enemy.
In the end, the operation to strengthen the front line was successful. Azov soldiers stormed 4 enemy's positions at once. They managed to eliminate 13 enemy soldiers, 12 were wounded, and 2 were taken prisoner. As a result of the offensive operation, they were able to improve the tactical position to depth of 400 meters and 500 meters along the front. But the confrontation continues.
And the youth from Azov not only keeps the defense, but destroys the enemy and performs assaults under such circumstances. At night, it's epic. Kremenna.
Azov continues to fight despite everything, from experienced veterans to very young fighters.
Cliff, 20 years old.
How many days are you at war?
I came here for the first time. The first time on the front line, but I have been there with the guys for 3 days.
Do you realize that you are actually in one of the hottest spots in the world?
I'm proud of it. We're all like a family here. We boil in this together. Here, you truly understand what brotherhood is. And the values here are completely different.
Azov continues to defend their land. For them, this war lasts to the victory, which they will undoubtedly achieve.
And then we can hear the 3D printer turn on the end, or the laser engraver. But with that, Nessie in the clip, of course, a very interesting mini documentary made by United 24, showing us a little bit about the Azov Special Forces. And while my throat implodes, I don't know what happened there. It's like my freaking throat just collapsed. But anyways, moving on from that, I've seen that many of y'all, since our announcement at the beginning of the stream tonight, have been talking about how is this channel going to move forward with our coverage on Israel. A lot of y'all want us to continue, although YouTube is clearly punishing us for continuing our coverage of that. I'm actually going to leave it up to y'all, because while I would like to see us return back to what we were before we started covering Israel, where YouTube actually pushes our stuff analytically, where we actually do reach people and people do hear our news, at the same time, I don't like the idea of bending a knee in our coverage or what we're able to talk about just because, someone doesn't really like it and someone won't even allow us to post the words inside of our own live chat. So, it's going to be up to y'all. Do y'all want us to continue to try and cover Middle Eastern news every single day like we have been, or not? We'll see what y'all think in the end. But moving on from that and into our next clip near Avdiivka, we did get to see an FPV drone hitting the Russians. Chad music ensues, and we can see FPV drone hit truck. Boom! And it's gone. And we can see a peon getting hit, or Janssen being hit by a PV drone. Kaboom! Chugga chugga. And we can now see an 80-wheeler getting hit by a freaking truck. Kaboom! And we can see another truck getting hit. Russian runaway. Kaboom! That's our new version of Chugga Chugga, I believe. And we can now see another one, EC Minomet. Boom! I don't even know what a Minomet is, but and they hit it. With that, you see in the clip. Very nice, very nice. I love to see it. With that, we have got to be moving on. But Matthew has sent me something over a text message that I honestly completely forgot about. So thank you for reminding me of that, Matthew. Many of y'all have been talking in chat. I see a lot of people saying F the haters. I don't know what brought that about, because all I was talking about was Israel news, but apparently everybody be corpse stomping hater. I thank you all for your kindness. But we also have to cover the amazing succulent pause. And so, Matthew, what do we get?
All right, so jumping into our first poll segment of the night, we have 3 to address. I just put one up, and it's still running and collecting votes, so we'll cover that one last. But moving on to our first one here, it says, the Wagner Group prepares to provide Hezbollah/Iran with air defense to use against Israel, and what are your thoughts? 57% said Wagner will get involved, 19% said Wagner will not get involved, 13% said unsure, and 11% said, they are considering it. And on this one, it's kind of tough to tell exactly what's going to happen, but one thing is for certain, the Wagner Group is now basically a proxy of Russia, and Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran. So we're dealing with people operating through proxies here, so it makes things slightly more confusing. The Wagner Group is no longer independent of Russia. It is probably directly controlled by Putin himself through the fur-wearing boy, the one who is Prigozhin's long-lost son, and they're the ones running that group. So I wouldn't put it past them to give air defense to them, but I'm a little uncertain right now if they'll actually go through and do it. They may just be talking, but it's kind of hard to tell. But Enforcer, what say you?
Now, really quickly, Matthew, I have to find something very magical. Let me see here. I must find this. I must find it. Let's see here. The Middle East maps. Oh, man, I think it might be this one. Let me check. It's got to be this one, isn't it? Speech was lame. Oh! Here we go! Here we go! Oh my lord! Oh! Dude, you know how I told you before the stream that I actually covered that news like weeks ago, and it's now hitting the mainstream so everyone's talking about it?
Yes.
Here is the map from day 12 of our coverage. So this means that this little piece of news right here is from sometime in like mid-October, sometime around the 16th, I think. There it is. I put it down on the news all the way back then. It was like in the middle of October, on the 16th or the 17th.
And click on the link. Who put that out back in the day?
Nexta. They were on top of it.
Let's see. Wagner may preside, Lebanese Hezbollah with the Pantsir. Interesting. So they've been on top of this story for a long time, but apparently they're getting close to making a decision. That's why it's resurfacing in the mainstream once again. Or maybe they just simply rehashed the story because they needed some news to cover, maybe.
I think they honestly rehashed the story because this was something that I remember we talked about a good bit when it happened way back. And this actually says on the 2nd of November. So that was 20 days ago. That was over 3 weeks ago that we covered this on our stream. And I'm not saying, not a plug or anything, but, if y'all are pretty blown away, because usually I make what sounds like outlandish claims, like we get to things before the mainstream news does, and we got to this 3 weeks before this started to make it into mainstream news circles. If you're impressed by that, subscribe, because we're usually way ahead of everyone. I'm just saying.
Hit that bell, too.
But getting on to this, and we covered this, I think, like 3 weeks ago. At least I covered it in the news. I don't know if we did a poll on it. But I have a feeling they're probably not going to do this, because we've heard about this since 3 weeks ago, and nothing really developed with it. And it sounds like the statements that are coming out today are very similar to the ones we heard 3 weeks ago. So I think it's kind of just being rehashed by news companies because they want something that will draw people in or make them a little bit more interested in that part of the world and the conflict happening there. But I don't really think it's going to be turning into anything. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, real quick, I saw Scott Morris say in the live chat, how is this legal? And he's referencing the YouTube alleged censorship. And he says, how can we complain to YouTube to get our voices heard? Rather than complaining directly to YouTube and simply saying that I don't like what I think is happening, there's really nothing else to do. And I'm actually the one that put that message in the live chat earlier, trying to pin it to our pin bar at the top of the live chat, and it would not go through with Hezbollah, Iran, and Israel in the title. I'm not sure if that was a coincidence or what, but the moment I took that out, those 3 words, it was allowed to be pinned and also put in the live chat. Now, that was very interesting coincidence, if that was a coincidence, which I'm sort of doubting it was. And many people have been saying that comments and live chats, theirs are being deleted out of the comments and also the live chat here on the stream as well. And I wasn't really sure whether or not to believe it, but I'm starting to lean the direction that YouTube might actually be doing that, because it's just too many little weird things going on about the situation. And we know they're very sensitive about that topic. So, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to be doing it.
Yeah, I would be honest, I'm not putting it past them either, and considering that I just clicked while Matthew was talking on 3 different comments in the live chat that had or didn't have certain words in them, and we were allowed to pin all of them because none of them included the words that we had in our pinned comment. That's a little interesting to me. It's also very interesting that Matthew asked me, hey, can you post my comment that I'm about to put in the live chat as a pinned comment? And then he posted it and he said, have you done it yet? And I said, no, I didn't even see it. So then he gave it to me on Discord. I then copied and pasted it into the live chat as well. And then it didn't show up for him either. And we have it turned on to live chat where we see every single chat coming in as it comes in. And everyone's was coming in except for ours, especially when they had certain words in them. And it looks like, to me, you know, just looking at that as it is, it appears that YouTube is curbing certain statements with certain topics. And they may also be doing that analytically as well. Because one thing we've noticed, and, you know, just to kind of break down analytics for y'all, because, you know, we always have YouTube experts that tell us how our channel runs and apparently know our analytics in the live chat, but our videos that we used to put out, our 10 to 12 minute videos, usually got anywhere in between 70 to 100,000 views each. Now our videos, when we put them out, are getting anywhere in between 25 to 30,000 views. And whenever they talk about anything happening in the Middle East or Israel, they get almost no views. I mean, like, they're like 20,000 or they're hardly even breaking 20,000. And it looks to me, especially because we look through certain things like the impressions that YouTube gives, which means how many times they show that video to people on their page, you know, like when they click on YouTube and go, hey, watch this video, they're hardly pushing them. And that's telling us that they apparently have something against us covering that kind of news. So, you know, that's something interesting to look at. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that we have that appears to be showing that YouTube's curbing certain kinds of news from getting out on the platform, and they're only wanting news they approve of to be circulated heavily. At least that's what we're seeing at the moment. But with that, we're on to the next poll.
All right, so moving on to our next poll, it says the U.S. has launched 2+ attacks against Iran-backed terrorists in the last 2 days, and what are your thoughts? 64% said these attacks will increase, 17% said it's too early to conclude anything, 12% said these attacks will remain isolated, and 6% said unsure. And on this one, it's hard to tell on this one. I hate to take the cop-out option again, but the U.S. has been somewhat conservative when it comes to responding to attacks on our soldiers in the Middle East. And it looks like they're just now coming around to actually carrying out several attacks in consecutive days. It's been about 2 or 3 in the last 2 days. And I just saw a post on Twitter come out saying that apparently we had hit an operations center and a C2 node that belonged to the Iranian-backed Iraqi Hezbollah group. And it looks like at least 6 of those militants were killed, but the total could go up. So it looks like maybe the U.S. is going to get more serious about attacking these people, attacking our soldiers. I hope so, because it's about time. But it's a little too early to tell because the U.S. is a little bit unpredictable with our foreign policy at the moment. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say we're probably going to see more U.S. strikes. It appears that they're starting to ramp up because for 2 straight days we've seen strikes in the Middle East on Iranian-backed groups. But who really knows? You know, and I hate to cop out like Matthew did, but who really knows, because we will attack them pretty well and then we won't do anything and then be attacked for a week or so and respond in no way whatsoever. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and to our last poll, the most contentious one. It says, should we continue to cover Israel news despite potential censorship? 71% said yes and 29% said no. And I would have to agree with these 71%. I think leaving out the Israeli news would be a travesty. It would be leaving out a massive segment of very important news that is important in the global scheme of things. And also, I don't like the idea of being censored. And even though YouTube has the right to do whatever they want, they are a private company. They can censor people if they want. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do from a First Amendment standpoint to counter that, except go to a different platform. You can't sue over that. You know, I don't like it. I don't think it's a good thing to do as a private company. They should allow free speech. That's probably the most appropriate thing. If it's something that is like calling for violence, I can understand they'd want to censor something like that. There are some things for the public good that they probably don't want to put on their platform. But at the same time, they should not censor opinions. That to me seems wrong. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it's not great to have YouTube trying to curtail what we're saying or what people are saying on the platform, especially when we're trying to work off of video and picture evidence that corroborates the statements and news that we're putting out here on our show. But at the same time, while we don't like it, it is completely understandable that it is a private company and they can do what they want. I know a lot of people don't understand the legal concept behind that and believe that things like YouTube are a public forum, but there's nothing public about the forum of YouTube. It is a completely private forum run by a company. So they get to decide what they have and don't have on their platform and what they promote and don't promote, just like they give us the right to ban people out of our live chat whenever they do certain things or say certain stuff. Of course, it's not great whenever that happens to you, but nevertheless, you just kind of have to accept that that's the way things work, and we have to move forward with that. Nevertheless, I still don't like the concept of removing our news coverage and the way we do it. Many of y'all do enjoy our Israel news coverage, and of course, if y'all, as the overwhelming majority, while I stuttered my way into that statement, as the overwhelming majority, if y'all want that news, we are going to include it whether there is censorship or not. I just hope that all of y'all on your end realize that it's going to be very hard for us to get any traction and spread our news out to people at all, because YouTube will hardly be pushing us at that point. They're hardly pushing us right now. And so if y'all would like to help us out, make sure to continuously spread the word and the information about our channel to anyone that you may know that may be interested in this kind of stuff, whether it be on the internet or in person or at your place of work, and share it with them, because otherwise our channel probably will not grow beyond this point. And that's something that has always been a big thing of mine, is trying to reach as many people as possible and share with them the news that we have. And it's going to be very tough doing that, considering that it seems as though YouTube is going to possibly penalize us at this point if we continue to cover that kind of news. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on into the chats. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping right into our Super Chat questions. Up first, we have a massive, the biggest Super Chat of the night, a $200 donation from old-time channel legend, BC Skyman. And thank you very much, BC, very much for that support. It is very generous, and also thank you for being a longtime channel viewer as well. And also, I believe he got back from his hunting trip yet again, so I hope it was fun. He says, possible, or I think he meant to say, is it possible to use Parler for our Israel news? LSA will follow you wherever you go. And awesome job, Matt and Andrew, enforcers, and Slava Israel and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the massive amount of support, BC Skyman, and helping this channel to keep on running. And to answer your question, it could be possible, but sadly, there is only so much time in a day. And back in the day, that used to not be an issue, but nowadays, it's certainly starting to become an issue. We've largely run out of time in the day to really add anything to what we do. We try and include videos, and considering that I've added in the Israel news for over a month and a half at this point, we're nearly going on 2 months now, it is very hard to find any extra time to do anything else, like maybe run a second stream after this one or before this one on Parler, because if we run it beforehand, I won't be able to collect Ukraine war news, and this stream won't exist. And if I do it after, I won't be able to collect Middle Eastern news for that stream either, because this stream will be running during that one's prep time. So it would be pretty tough to pull something off like that. It would actually be next to impossible, but it is a neat idea. Nevertheless, one thing that's a big deal to me as well is that we started on YouTube, and we pretty much exist on YouTube. And so I would hate to have to try and have our community move to another platform. It would be like a monolithic effort to get folks to go to a place like Parler. And not only that, I don't really know how Parler works too much. We may go over there and, we may find out that Parler is possibly even worse than YouTube. I don't really know, because I've never had any experience or really know much about Parler. But still, I thank you so much for the massive amount of support and the kind words, BC Skyman, because folks like you have made this channel possible. And thanks to y'all's continued support, we are able to do things that we wouldn't be able to do. And I've got to tell y'all that we are very lucky. We're a very blessed channel to know that all of y'all enjoy the channel so much that y'all decide to support it out of your own pockets instead of through the pockets of advertisers, which I find very distasteful, especially covering this kind of news. Because if we ran off of AdSense or anything like that, our channel would have died nearly a month ago, because YouTube has pretty much been age restricting or demonetizing, although we don't even have anything monetized, almost everything we put up, especially live streams. And so I got to thank you and folks like you, BC Skyman, for y'all's support through the super chats and helping this channel to keep on running, because it seriously wouldn't be able to exist without y'all. And y'all can see right now that we're having a little bit of a dilemma with how we cover our Middle Eastern news because of that. And so thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, because with your support, this channel will be able to power on through, regardless whether YouTube pushes us to other people or not. We will be able to do this as a job and continue to cover all of the news that y'all want to hear around the world. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And also, I'm told by several people that the Parler is gone. So if it is gone, I'll be honest with you, I've never really even heard of Parler. I think I might have heard it in passing. But also, I believe I saw some news story mentioning something about it getting bought out. But I don't know much about it. But maybe the enforcer is typing it up to look. I'm not sure.
I see that Parler does exist, but it has a 2.2 star rating on Google Play.
Well, that could be for many reasons. Maybe it's like it could be politically oriented, perhaps.
Maybe. I don't really know enough about Parler to even really talk about it. I heard about it once before, that someone was going to make Parler, but then I never really heard anything beyond that. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our next Super Chat question, we have an $80 donation. Massive support from Margaret Hemsley, another longtime old guard channel legend, and thank you very much, Margaret, for that support. She says, "You rock." And my present for you on my birthday. And it's your birthday. Happy birthday to you, Margaret. And she says, "What can you get with this? You have to share. Sorry."
And thank you so much once again for the support, Margaret. And let's see. And also, really quickly, happy birthday to Margaret. I want everyone to give Margaret Hemsley a happy birthday in the live chat. It's amazing to know that you're here with us on your birthday night. And I hope that we've been able to produce a great stream, all things considered, on your birthday. And also, what can you get with this? Let's see, that would be, I think, around $60 US, and then YouTube takes their cut, so then there's 40. And so, if I could get anything with that, I'm trying to think, because it's most likely going to be gun related, it would be...
Make it a Five Guys hamburger.
Yeah, well, wait a minute. You could actually you could get 2 Five Guys hamburgers. You could get like two
Two
Five Guys
hamburgers,
meals.
not two.
Not 2. But you could get 2 Five Guys hamburgers, or you could get a box of like 50 rounds. Actually, I think you could get like nearly 100 rounds at this point of like 32 ACP at that price. I think, if I'm thinking correctly, I think that's the price right now for ACP ammo. And also, by the way, y'all, I'll give you a little bit of an update on this. I tried to get rid of that lemon Tommy gun that we got that we were going to review at the beginning of this year, and then we brought it to the range to just test it out before we did a gun review on it, and it jammed so badly we couldn't even film anything with it. I tried to get rid of it today, and it didn't go well at all. So that was something interesting to deal with. I was like, what the hell? But anyways, with that, I thank you so much once again for support, Margaret, and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who make this thing possible. And you know what, Matthew? You know what? Since we are kind of stuck with the Tommy gun right now, I think when we get around to making gun review videos, we may just make a review on it, how it works, and just talk about it. I mean, it's not a good gun, at least when we shot it, like 10 months ago. And
the last time we shot it, we ended up having to break out the safety lock from the Glock I've got, and then try to rip the charging handle open, and then all the bullets got stuck in the drum.
Oh, it was a nightmare. It was terrible. Like and also, by the way, just in case you're all wondering why Jay Bagwell is such a big thing on the channel, whenever we see him, we're like, hey, it's a legend. He was actually there with us at this range, and we were shooting his guns. He was shooting our guns. It was a kind of like a range meet kind of thing. We ended up, all 3 of us, having to like use all of our muscle to try and get the drum magazine off of this thing. And even before that, it just shot poorly. Like, it would spray you with hot gunpowder while you were shooting it. It was just the worst. And I've been able since then to shoot a real Tommy gun, and it was nothing like the one that I have. It was way better. It was so smooth. It was so accurate. It wasn't spraying hot gunpowder all over me. It was way better. It was an actual enjoyable experience. But the semi-automatic reproduction made by Auto Ordnance, or more so their parent company, Car Arms, it was terrible. I'm not even going to lie. And especially for the price. The thing was expensive. It cost $2,600 to get. And at that price, you would expect some high-end quality, and there was no quality in that gun to be had.
Beyond that's some expensive wall art.
Yeah, it's expensive wall art. That's the best way that it can be described. And knowing that, I will never get anything again from any company that is owned by Car Arms or is Auto Ordnance. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. Well, the last one of this segment.
All right, and the last one of the segment goes to Dana Estes, who puts in a $50 donation. And this is Dana's first ever super chat of the channel. And thank you very much, Dana. That is very generous of you. And also, thank you for helping to keep us running. It does help us keep going. And she says, first-time supporter and semi-long-time listener. And I love you guys, and thank you very much. They said, thanks for your positive energy and bringing us much-needed Ukraine news. And the question is, whatever came of the large gunpowder factory explosion in Tambov last week?
You know what? That's actually a great question, Dana, because I never gave a follow-up to that story. From what we understand, the ammunition factory in Tambov suffered a critical ammunition explosion in a part of the factory, but from what we understand, it was in some kind of a storage building, not connected to the main factory. The main factory sustained minimal damage, but a decent amount of the ammunition storage facility at the factory was destroyed in the fire. So from what we know, the factory may actually be operational, but the ammunition stores that they were getting ready to ship out to the Russian army are no longer there. So they're most likely going to have to probably ramp up the shifts or ramp up the production and lower the quality control at that factory to account for the loss of ammunition in the storage building fire. So I hope that answered that question fairly well, because I actually never gave a follow-up to that. And to address the rest of your super chat, I don't know why I'm stuttering so much tonight. I'm so sorry, y'all, but thank you for being a first-time supporter in helping this channel to keep on running. Your support does make it possible for the thing to roll. You help us to oil the gears and keep everything running behind our scenes, or behind the scenes on the channel, to be able to make this live stream possible every day. And I got to thank you so much for enjoying the channel and enjoying the positive energy and the Ukraine news that we bring. And just thank you so much once again for finding it worthwhile to support it all. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we're now going to be moving out of the question segment and on into the Ukraine war news again. Moving on down towards Avdiivka, where we got to see a BMP-2 firing at the Russians near a slag heap on the outskirts of the city.
A slag heap. That seems like the Russians might be best at home.
And we can see the BMP-2 firing from over there. We can see the muzzle flash of the gun and its 30mm shells landing in this field. And you can also see how clear and easy it is to spot a BMP-2 when it's firing. The flash from the muzzle is so bright it gives it away for miles.
Man, the Russians' future is so bright you didn't have to wear shades.
Dude,
they had to wear seeing glasses.
Dude, they saw that flashing crab and they were like moths. They just stood in the open going, oh, flame. But anyways.
You know, the Russians have that little fire spark in their soul. They're like, you see some fire and they're like, oh, crazy, crazy.
Man, the darkness around me didn't consume me because the fire inside of me burned brighter. That's literally an APD shell sitting in your chest. Yes, it is. It's very bright. But anyways, moving on from that and down into the area of the village chain, we got to see Ukrainian BMP dashing through the mud in the one engine open tank. Anyways, here's the clip. When you see them driving by, look at that mud. Ugh! Has the consistency of chocolate cake.
And you know if you step in that mud, you're about to have some skin turning red.
Man, that mud be grippy. But
nasty.
But when you see the BMPs driving on, and we can see chocolate rain. I don't know why I'm trying to throw in so many like modern meme references tonight. But moving on from that and into Avdiivka, we also got to see a crab firing at the Russians. And we got to see the interior workings of the gun. Check it out, y'all. Check it out. It makes it so easy. When you see the powder charge.
Don't mess with the Slavic crab. They're thug.
Dude, this thing's theme song is Crab Rave.
What's that little piece they're throwing in there before the actual like shell gets in there?
What do you mean? It's going in after the shell. Look, shell is loaded at like light speed, and then they take the little, you know, fabric casing, and what that is, Matthew, is that is a giant pack of gunpowder.
Interesting.
It's what shoots shell.
I've never seen that before.
Really?
Yeah, either I've not been paying attention or it's new, one or the other.
That is actually very common in most SPGs to have a separate powder charge for the shell. Because, and this is really cool, you can actually modify the size of these little powder charges to give the round more range or less range.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool. And we can see him pushing it in. The breech then closes right there. And then they fire the piece. Man, we got our man over here. He's wearing those Harry Truman glasses. Nuke him, Harry. Nuke him. But we can see the video in right there. And very nice to see. But moving on from that and on into our next clip, we are now moving all the way down into Crimea, near Yevpatoria, where we got to see a picture of an explosion occurring in the area, but we have no additional news to go with it. But hopefully it's something big. We'll probably find out tomorrow. Moving on from that, it's time for our most controversial segment in the show. It's time for the Middle East. And we're
Give it to me. Give it to me now.
Man, we're going to be giving it to them like a cold cut. But moving on down into the bottom of the Red Sea, we got to see a video put out today by the Houthis as they went out and seized the Galaxy Leader, which is the car-carrying cargo ship that was seized last week.
This video is wild. Like to see them doing this.
And we can see them throwing up some interesting context. We can see the cargo ship out there like a giant floating brick. You know, they actually say that this design of cargo ship is actually incredibly dangerous to work on because due to their weight balance and how top-heavy they are, they actually have a tendency of rolling over in high seas.
Interesting. Well, today, that wasn't the concern. It was the terrorists that were the concern today.
High seas weren't the concern, it was terrorism on the high seas. And here they come. I like how they taped some a Yemeni and a Palestinian flag to the back of the helicopter just to make sure that the messaging was clear. And we can see that this landing pad is for winches only, and this appears to be perfect for the Yemenis as they're all winches. But we can see the helicopter.
Yeah, winch.
You damn winch!
The Houthis have never been too good for following instructions, so that's why they're terrorists.
And that's also why they skipped the landing pad, because they decided they ate winches, they're bitches, so they land on the main deck of the cargo ship. You now see them hopping out, and trying to be tactical, but they're not really doing a good job at it. There's not really a lot to hide behind. There goes the Mi-8.
I just know that one of them just itching to say, I'm the captain now.
Look at me! Look at me! Look, it's a live replay of Captain Phillips. Wait a minute, hold up! My boy! My boy! Look, they're not like Hamas or Hezbollah. They don't use AKMs. They actually have the AK-74s.
Interesting.
Cool. Need to know. Apparently the Houthis are better equipped than the Hamas or Hezbollah.
You know, also, real quick, I saw some people earlier, not here on the stream, obviously, but somewhere else in the comments, they were giving the crew crap for not securing the door. And my response to that would be, their alternative is the terrorists are probably going to shoot and kill every single one of them if they don't cooperate. So they have to, you know, let them in. Because I don't think these guys are armed, are they? The crew.
Oh, hell no. They're not allowed to be armed.
Oh, well, hell, I might have to break that rule if I was on the high seas. You were going through the Red Sea with the terrorists next door. It's like you're not allowed to be armed.
No, you're not. That's why the whole Somali pirate thing that happened in the early 2010s was such a big deal, because most of the time, because of where these ships are going and firearms aren't allowed to be privately owned in most nations, if the ship was coming from, like, say, the United States and was crewed by an American crew, they still couldn't carry guns because they go to a place like Italy. Then when the Italian customs officers come on board and conduct their inspection, if they find loose firearms like that, the crew could actually be arrested for that.
That's messed up. So, like, what's the recourse for these guys in the ship that are passing through terrorist waters or pirate waters? They're supposed to accept it and potentially get killed with no means to defend themselves?
Yeah, I mean, they accept it, and if they run into any issues, their only recourse is to try and call some friendly navy that may have a ship in the area.
Now I know I've seen some people in the chat say that unless they have a PMC, I know I've seen PMCs on these boats before.
Yeah, that was kind of rare. That was very rare. Usually, that was for ships carrying extremely valuable cargo, and there had to be a lot of paperwork involved in that. That was more so an exception to the norm, and that usually happened back during the Somali pirate crisis of the early 2010s.
Dang, they need to change that law then, because that's ridiculous. These guys shouldn't be robbed of self-defense rights just because they're on the waters.
Yeah, and also after the whole Somali pirate issue was over, a lot of these ships no longer had water cannons equipped to them or anything like that. All of those anti-piracy measures were removed because ever since about 2013, piracy on the high seas has practically been non-existent.
That's crazy. And also, I just noticed this guy's wearing it looks like a Grand Teton shirt, so maybe he's American.
Maybe, but I gotta say, huge respect. The Tetons National Park is gorgeous.
Oh, indeed. It's pretty nice to you can just like roll out of bed in a t-shirt and run the boat.
Yeah. We now see them inside of the hull of the ship.
No smoking, safety first. Oh my god.
I love how he's walking through the empty ship with no one around going, "We own the ship! Oh, that's just like, it's like, who are you telling this?" Also, he's got a Glock 17 This is the basic boy of the group, you know, just pulling out the most common pistol out there in the world. He couldn't be unique, you know, he couldn't have a Makarov or, you know, something else. You know, he couldn't be anything interesting. It had to be a Glock, you know, and a black one at that. You know, it's like the most normal thing you could find out there. Man, my boy's giving a propaganda speech to a full crowd, a full house.
I would have to consider just going ahead and taking the bullet and telling him to shut the hell up. I would have to do it.
And now when you see all the Yemeni speedboats have gathered around as they're escorting it to port.
Oh, they're rich. They got a yacht club. They're like, look, boys, we brought back the big yacht this time. We brought cars, too. We robbed them.
Oh, my Lord. Let's see, did they start flying the Yemeni flag off of the top of the ship? I think they did. I think that was the flag of Yemen.
It's the galaxy leader of the Yemeni.
Man,
oh my God, man, that's so stupid.
And look at all the speedboats, man. They're about to get crushed in the back wake of the ship. Yeah, you know, like where there's that like pressure differential that sucks boats in once they get too close. They're there. They're in it.
And do they really think they're going to keep the ship?
No, they probably don't think they are. They might be holding the crew for ransom or something. But we can see it just slowly going on along. And they put up the flags of Palestine and Yemen. Safety first. That's it. The Yemenis do not believe in that. Or more so the Houthis.
Well, they are flying that flag, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I just brought that up a second ago.
Yeah, no, I'm saying you see it up close.
Oh, I was like, yeah, man. I just said that. I didn't know you meant like you were backing me up, but.
I'm backing you up, man. Come on. Look at this person here putting in the throw-up sign with the American flag and the Israeli flag. Get your ass up out of here.
Man, get the hell out of here, man. This is a pro-Western world channel, man. The hell are you talking about, man? Oh, come bust you up. Anyway, so moving on from that and into our next bit of news inside of eastern Iraq, we've heard that the U.S. has conducted airstrikes against Iranian-backed terrorist groups in the area, according to U.S. Central Command. On the morning of November 22nd in Iraq, U.S. Central Command, U.S. CENTCOM forces conducted discrete, what the hell is wrong with me? Discrete precision strikes against two facilities in Iraq. The strikes were in direct response to the attacks against U.S. and coalition forces by Iran and Iran-backed groups, including the one in Iraq on November 21st, which involved the use of close-range ballistic missiles. Very nice to hear that the U.S. Central Command is starting to take control of the situation over the past 48 hours, but we do not know if this is going to be a reoccurring thing inside of Syria and Iraq. Moving on out of that and into the area of northern Lebanon, we did see that Hezbollah forces had continued to attack and fight against Israeli forces along the border region. Oh yeah, we've got the Jungle Book music playing. We're about to see that big bear pop up, Matt. He's about to start talking about there's necessities, the simple fairness. Well, we can't get copyrighted by Disney, but we can see them firing their ATGM. Oh, I'm sorry, their MLRS. And we can see the Israeli fob out here getting hit. And we can also see that stupid Kalashnikov 7-Up logo in the bottom corner.
Oh, and also, by the way, speaking of bear necessities, if y'all want some necessities that bears like, there's this thing called Mike's Hot Honey that I tried today. Oh. Man, that stuff is busting.
Dude,
that is some good stuff.
That stuff is fire. It's great. Y'all, I highly recommend it.
I know it's so off topic, but it's so good I had to mention it.
You know, we got to give them a shout out, just like we gave a pizza place a shout out, and then every single time anyone went in there to buy a pizza from them, they went, "Who are these people? I never heard of them." It's like, what the hell? It's like we come in here and buy pizza like every 2 days. But anyways, we can see the MLRS strike continuing to hit the Israeli fob. From what we understand, there may have not been any casualties sustained during this barrage, but it was certainly a large one. Oh, look, they're wiring up rockets. You know, I gotta say, it's you know, Middle Eastern terrorist groups and wires are a bad combination usually. But we can see them firing off their cheap dollar store MLRS again, and we can see that the spread is so wide that it even... Oh, well, I'm not going to say that joke. I think that was a little bit too much.
I knew where you were going with that one. I was thinking it when you were about to say it.
You know what? We're going to make an exception tonight since it's the Israel segment. The spread is so wide, it's even giving your mother a run for her money. But we can see that the rocket strike is hitting literally everything on the northern Israeli border. Matthew goes, oh, man. But when you see them firing off more rockets.
Oh, man. It was unintentional. Look away, children. Oh, yuck.
And we can see the rockets continuing to land in northern Israel. I don't think they're even hitting anything. Man, dude, I like how that guy came in here and said justice for Palestine. Apparently there's many of them.
Justice for Palestine? Well, the justice would be they back off Israel, stop killing civilians. That's all the justice we need in this modern day and age.
Justice for Palestine, Palestinians, I agree, at The Hague. How about that? I think that's a good one. But we can see that the rockets continue to strike. Mr. B said, emotional damage to the joke he said a minute ago. Oh, man. But anyways, that's the end of the clip. We can see a small fire break out of the Israeli FOB, but nevertheless, the Israelis are keeping in control of the situation from what we understand. We did see Hezbollah continuing to target Israeli forces again in another clip. Now, apparently using 500 kilogram lob bombs, which I've never really heard of before, but here's the clip. I gotta tell you all the music is...
Mission Impossible ripoff theme song.
Bum, 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 bum. Oh my god, it's the same fob. They've hit this thing like 5 times now. Like, it's the same one, I'm not even lying. Like, it's the 5th time they've attacked it.
We're about to have the Tom Cruise ripoff pop up in a minute here on the battlefield. It's going to be Yamrus.
So wait a minute, the bombs are just in giant tubes? I've never heard or seen of this stuff before. There they go.
Why'd that look fake?
It's so stupid. It does look fake, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks comical.
Damn.
What the hell? It just blew up over there.
And that one was a dud. Oh, wait, no, it wasn't. It just landed so far behind the hill, I don't even think it hit the fob. I think it missed it. And there goes another 2. What is this stuff? I mean, this is the stupidest bomb deployer I've ever seen. This is like something you would see in, like, World War I, where they came up with, like, the bomb thrower. This is just stupid. And they look like they hit on the very far side of the back end of the fob, or just missed it entirely again. And there's their stupid logo, but that's the end of the clip.
You can expect to hear, like, the THX, like, sound effect playing over that logo.
Yeah, you know what? They're probably going to start doing that next, man. They don't give them any ideas. But moving on from that and down into the area of Tel Aviv, we also did hear that the Israelis have finally approved the hostage deal. Netanyahu has assured the public that they will be continuing on with the war once the ceasefire ends, but from what we understand, there will be a 5-day ceasefire in exchange for 50 hostages being released. From what we've heard, we were also told that the United States had a major role to play in this peace deal, this temporary ceasefire that has been brokered in between the Israelis and the Palestinians, or more so, the Hamas. It's a very interesting diplomatic move. It's been very controversial as well. Some people have praised the move as a step towards the end of hostilities and fighting in the region. Others have condemned it as getting Hamas more time to prepare for the conflict with Israel, saying that Israel is exchanging time for Israeli lives. Regardless, what do y'all think? Tell us in the live chat. But moving on from that into...
We actually have a poll on that, by the way. We'll go over here shortly.
Oh, good. I like that. But we can also see in the area of Tel Aviv some rocket interceptions.
Whoa!
And when you hear that, little kid's impressed.
Man, this is a father and son bonding moment over this.
He's like, you see, son, that's the Israeli military at work. He's like, look.
כמו הסרטון שלך, הם מולם מדברים, עושים לב ואז...
נכון.
Man, it's like watching shooting stars, I guess, you know?
I guess.
A little bit of a bizarre shooting star, but, you know, I guess it counts.
Really no sound from that one.
And White Wolf said, no Zelensky speech? It's coming. I promise you, it's coming. We just got to get through this news segment. And we're already starting to run overtime for how long our news segments usually are. Okay, that scared the hell out of me. That was the air raid siren.
Man. Was the like siren like right next to their house?
Dude, the siren was sucking someone's soul out of their body. Like it went. It's like, listen to it. Dang! Oh my lord! Man. But moving
that
on,
would traumatize the kid more than the actual bomb going off.
Dude, I'm gonna have nightmares about that. But moving on from that, we saw another video of the Iron Dome interceptions that occurred last night. There goes the Iron Dome missiles. Everyone in the chat's like, what the hell was that? Dude, everyone heard that and said, what the hell is even that? Oh, man, but we can see more Iron Domes being fired off. And good lord, look at Tel Aviv. It looks like downtown New York. I mean, that's a pretty impressive city right there. It's beautiful.
New York, if it was a little bit more violent. But wait, it already is. It just doesn't have missiles flying overhead.
In Tel Aviv, Iron Dome's at work. Meanwhile, in New York City, the sounds of an ongoing firefight in Midtown or something like that. Man, the New York Police Department is almost a military force with how big and how armed they have to be to deal with New York City on a daily basis.
And also how quick they are to grab you and stuff up there. Like, they just go grabbing everybody whenever they feel like it.
Yeah, man, you know, it's that, like, New York mentality. What the hell are you doing over here? You know, and they just grab you and, like, and fling you around and crap. You know, that wouldn't fly down here in the South, I'll tell you that. But anyways, moving on from this clip, nice to see more Iron Dome interceptions. And we're now going to be moving on down into the area at Gaza. Speaking of, you know, conflict and violence going on, more conflict and violence has been going on within the Strip, as we've seen Israeli forces push into the area of Jabalia on their way into the actual city of Gaza proper, which is just a little bit south of Jabalia. Moving into our first clip, we saw the IDF hitting more Hamas sites in the northern area near Beit Hanun. And bada swing, and they knocked out the Hamas site. And we can see the camera, of course, being overwhelmed by the beauty of high explosive. And that's the end of the clip. But moving on from that one and on into our next one, we also got to see over here near Atatra, a special reconnaissance unit of the IDF at work. At night. And I gotta be honest with you, the way his laser was moving around while he was firing, I don't know if those shots were that accurate. Like, look at this. One was on the 3rd floor, one was in between the 3rd and the 2nd floor and hit the balcony, and then the 3rd shot was on the 2nd floor. We now see some IDF forces moving around in the daylight. Of an ongoing firefight. We see them firing some kind of an AT weapon. And that's the end of the clip. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that footage of that special reconnaissance unit and on into the area near Jabalia, where we heard the Israeli Defense Forces are beginning to physically encircle the area of Jabalia and prepare to take the area. Here's the clip. You see these soldiers using the IWI X-95 Tabor. When you see a Merkava Mark 4M moving in for support. And with that, that's the end of the clip, but showing a little bit of footage of the IDF encircling the Jabalia urban core. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip and on into some that were in the area, but along the beach, as we saw an IDF patrol in the area. Man. Oh my lord. What a fob. You know, when I said that, it almost sounded like I was from the 1950s, Matthew. I said, boy, oh boy, what a fob. Gee willikers. But anyways, there's the fob. We see some Merkavas coming in. And we now see the Israeli infantry moving out in the morning hours. We can also see that they got that doggy.
They got that dog with them.
They got that dog in them.
Doing some dishes, I guess.
I said clear the room, not clean the room. That's what that guy said when he came in. Oh my lord.
Aye, aye, aye.
Damn. They were in a tunnel. And that's the end of the clip. But moving
There's
on.
an explosive montage right here. Lovely.
Moving on from that patrol, we also got to see the destruction of some more Hamas sites in the area. This was near the beach. Baboof. When you see the ammunition exploding. Nice. Damn. I gotta tell you, every single explosion in the Gaza Strip is like getting close to being the world record in size. I don't know what's up with that. But moving on from that and into our next clips, a little bit closer to the Jabalia area, we got to see the IDF blowing up another building that was found to be a Hamas weapons cache. You can see the building getting hit right there. You can also see them laying down some gunfire onto this building as well. And then it appears to get hit by possibly a tank shell. When you see more covering fire being laid down onto the building. And it appears that they have decided to demolish the building after a prolonged firefight. With that, that's the end of the clip, but I have a feeling that that firefight ended right there at the end of the clip. We're now going to be moving on from that and into our next one, where we got to see more IDF airstrikes occurring within the area of northern Gaza. Wow. I think they were trying to hit a tunnel right there. Wow. I think they were trying to destroy a building right there.
Wow.
Wow. Also, at this point, understanding now that Israeli information that that hospitals in northern Gaza were being used as military outposts has been confirmed to be true, we are assuming that every single building that the IDF is hitting, they have gotten enough information about to be able to confirm that it is a Hamas weapon site. At the beginning of this conflict, we were skeptical that these were Hamas military sites, but considering that over the past month and a half, the Israelis have been able to prove that all of their claims at the very beginning of the conflict were accurate, we have no reason to doubt the claim that these areas are Hamas weapon sites at this point. If anyone has any information to contradict that, though, we would be more than happy to see it. Just send us a DM on Twitter showing that. But do not, under any circumstances, give me a 30-minute clip where someone talks about just stuff. I need to see video evidence and proof to remove the proof of the claim. That's what I have to see. Documentaries, not really needing, more so proof and video footage that an area was not a weapons cache or site that the IDF is hitting. That's what I will take. But moving on from that, we can see more IDF strikes in the area. We can see them targeting what appears to be some kind of a compound and hitting the first building to the right side of the area. We can now see a large group of Hamas fighters walking down the street, and a group of Hamas fighters enter the bar. Actually, they hit the bar, but we're about to see them get hit. We can see the next building in the compound here. And then the video just ends. But with that, we're now moving on from that and into our next clips in the area of Awash, or near Al-Aqsa University, where we saw even more IDF airstrikes. The IDF has been conducting an incredibly large amount of airstrikes over the past 48 hours. When you see them demolishing several more buildings. A sight to behold. And a sight we are beholding. As JSM says, anonymously posted. And thank you. I don't know what that's about, but thank you. And with that, that's the end of that clip. And you know, Matthew, I'm gonna have to be honest. I'm gonna have to say that one aloud. Matthew said, "Just show the best ones. They're getting repetitive," and I know they were getting repetitive.
Man, I'm not gonna lie, like they're getting pretty like similar to each other.
And now we get to see another clip of Israeli forces in the area of the southern part of military operations in Gaza. But I'm not going to lie, they were getting a little repetitive. It was just airstrike after airstrike. But here's the clip. Oh, it's a doobie. Hey, hoodoo, it's a doobie. As a Merkava Mark 4D, we now see a Merkava Mark 4M and a Mare. And a Mark 4M providing some fire support. We now see the IDF moving forward. And that's the end of the clip. And with that, we are now moving on from that video footage. And that is all of the news and information that we have from inside of the Middle East today, as well as East Asia. However, I will make some notable mentions that we were not able to include on the news tonight for time concerns. North Korea launched a spy satellite today. The launch was successful, and a P-8 Poseidon aircraft within the area of Hawaii appears to have overshot the runway and ended up kind of a, let's see, what was it called? Waterplaning, Matthew?
Sort of sinking, I guess you could say.
Kind of sinking into the water near the beach, near the airfield. But those are some notable mentions of news inside of East Asia, but sadly, we cannot cover that tonight due to time constraints. But with that, we're now moving on into Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 636 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Peach! That was such a voice crack, but here we go.
Здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Щойно провів зустріч з міністром оборони Німеччини, і він сьогодні відвідав не лише Київ, а був в регіонах нашої держави, підтримав наших воїнів, усіх наших людей. Я вдячний за це. Ми маємо новий потужний пакет підтримки від Німеччини. Це оборонна підтримка – 1 300 000 000 євро. І серед іншого в цьому пакеті посилення нашого ППО, а саме виробництво нових систем IRIS-T та ракети для ППО. Завдяки цьому наші міста, тисячі життів наших людей будуть врятовані від російського терору. Дуже важливо, що в цьому пакеті також і потрібна нам артилерія, і дійсно серйозний пакет. Дуже. Німеччина серед лідерів у допомозі нашого захисту, нашій державі та у збереженні миру в усій Європі. Ми обговорили з паном міністром Борисом Пісторіусом ситуацію на полі бою. Зараз нашу співпрацю, зокрема, у спільному виробництві озброєнь, в усьому тому, що допоможе захистити і Україну, і всю нашу Європу. Сьогодні ж у Києві були президент Європейської ради Шарль Мішель та президентка Молдови Майя Санду. У 10-ту річницю від початку Майдану це особливо символічно. Головною тематикою була наша інтеграція в Європейський Союз. І України, і Молдови. Наша держава виконує все те, що необхідно для реального початку переговорів про вступ. Усі рішення, які ми мали прийняти, вже ухвалені. І зараз ухвалимо навіть те, що належало зробити до весни, тобто за графіком вже після політичного рішення ЄС про початок переговорів. Україна абсолютно має чітку позицію, все реалізувати, бути повністю готовою до початку переговорів, бо для нас це все дуже конкретно. Кожен успіх нашої держави додає впевненості, мотивації нашим людям, усім тим, хто захищає Україну, хто нам допомагає. Сьогодні ми обговорили, як рухаємось, і, звичайно, дуже важливо, щоб Європейський Союз зі свого боку виконав свою обіцянку, ухваливши рішення для України, давши нам старт переговорів. Я вдячний пану президенту Європейської ради Шарлю Мішелю та усім партнерам в Європі за відповідну підтримку. Зараз час для посилення солідарності. Хороша зустріч була з президенткою Молдови. Ми обговорили увесь спектр наших відносин. Особливий акцент, звичайно, на тому, як можемо посилити наші економіки, нашу безпеку. Говорили про наш експорт, про взаємодію в трикутнику Україна, Молдова, Румунія. Я дякую вам, Майя, пані президент, за щирість і волю у зміцненні наших відносин. Україна і Молдова разом з усіма нашими партнерами здатні додати зростання та соціальної справедливості і для наших країн, і для усього нашого регіону. І ще одне. Сьогодні ось тут, у Маріїнському палаці, відзначив державними нагородами наших воїнів-десантників. Сьогодні їх професійний день, День ДШВ Збройних сил України. Наші потужні воїни, наші міцні бойові бригади. Я дякую кожному воїну за все, що ви робите заради України та українців. Я дякую всім командирам, які бережуть життя солдатів. Я дякую кожному і кожній, хто допомагає захищати нашу державу і людей, і хто наближає вигнання окупантів. Український народ вміє досягати своїх цілей, коли ми усі боремось саме за це, заради України. Слава Україні!
And
Herom Slava.
Herom Slava. And that video cut out so quick, it even cut out his Herom Slava. He just went Herom Slava, and then it ended. But that is the end of Zelensky's speech. And you all know what that means. That means we're moving on into part 2 of the stream. Yeah, baby! If y'all love part 1, then you're going to love part 2. Stick around, because you're going to enjoy it. By the way, smack up that like button, and also subscribe, because that kind of makes us happy. We like to see it, Please subscribe. But anyways, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so moving into our final poll and question segment. Our very first poll says, North Korea launched its first military satellite into orbit today, and will tensions soar with South Korea? 48% said yes, tensions are soaring right now. 27% said no, tensions will remain the same. 19% said, it really doesn't matter, and 7% said unsure. And one thing I will say is it's not good that North Korea has put a satellite, a military mapping satellite that is, into orbit. That's certainly not something we wanted them to do. But at the same time, at least North Korea gave South Korea some warning that they were going to launch it before they actually did, which is something I really did not expect North Korea to do, indicating that maybe they're not really trying to escalate, but they are trying to go ahead and get that satellite into orbit, so that way they can try to keep, basically flexing their muscles, which they really don't have. So I would say tensions are probably going to remain the same. Nothing's really going to change, but I think the West is going to maybe portray it like something major has happened, when in actuality, it's just North Korea launching a janky satellite into orbit. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think it will become a minor diplomatic incident. I don't think it's going to become anything major, because we can even see right now that while the diplomatic response is strong, there's been no physical response to it at all since it's happened. So I think it's going to remain that way, and we're probably just going to see people talk about it in the diplomatic sphere for maybe 2 days, and then they'll move on to the next thing. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the second poll says the U.S. brokered a ceasefire to release hostages in Gaza, and Israel says the war will continue afterwards. And what are your thoughts? 52% said good deal, free the hostages. 31% said bad deal, the terrorists will regroup now. 9% said, I'm somewhat indifferent, and 9% said unsure. And on this one, like I've said before, it's a little bit of a tricky one. Because they have secured the release of 50 hostages out of Gaza, which is certainly a great thing by any means. But at the same time, it is going to allow Hamas to regroup. That is an inevitable side effect of this deal, and that could end up being a bad thing. But I'm assuming that Israel has calculated that no matter how Hamas tries to regroup or resupply themselves, there's really not much they can do to change their plight. Or at least that's my assumption. And I hope that's the case. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that Hamas is in a pretty bad situation right now in the Gaza Strip for sure. And what happened? Reread the line.
It says the U.S. brokered a ceasefire to release hostages in Gaza. And thoughts?
I think it's a great thing. I was in the hills of northern Israel with Netanyahu. But to answer it in all seriousness, I think it's a good thing that some hostages are going to be released. Hopefully they won't be executed. So, that's a good thing. But at the same time, it is going to probably provide Hamas with time. And when dealing with a war against Hamas, time is the greatest weapon that Hamas has. 5 days allows them to move around almost everything. They have 5 full days, both day and night, to transfer their bases from one location to the next, and Israeli information may become outdated because of this 5-day gap. We don't really know how that's going to unfold. Maybe the Israelis will be able to keep on top of things and know exactly where Hamas forces went or where they're going in those 5 days and where they're preparing new defenses. So with that, it's a good thing to know the 50 hostages will be released, but at the same time, it may be giving Hamas some breathing room to surprise the Israelis once the ceasefire's over. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right. So our last poll says, how would you rate Zelensky's performance as president of Ukraine during the war? 2% said he's done a terrible job. And I would have to say that since Ukraine hasn't been taken over yet, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I wouldn't say he's done a terrible job, or otherwise Ukraine might have been taken over. So I'd have to disagree with the 2% that are bots. But anyway, moving on to our next one, we have a 4% that said, it's good, but starting to fall off. 12% said good as can be expected, and 82% said he's done an excellent job. So Zelensky has very, very high ratings in the polls. He's doing quite well in the polls. But for me, honestly, this is not something directly related to Zelensky, but I'm very hesitant to get too overly anxious to, say people are doing excellent and perfect jobs. I think it's as good as can be expected under the circumstance. Zelensky has done a fantastic job rallying the people of Ukraine, also making sure the armed forces are sticking together and having a general strategy. And also he's done a good job going around the world and garnering support for Ukraine. So on that front, I think he's done an excellent job. Obviously, he's human. He's not perfect. But I think under the circumstances, he really couldn't do much better. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, I've got to say, I think he's been doing a damn good job. I mean, I think he's been doing great, But, luckily, so far, there's been no dreadful scandal. Many of y'all know that here in the American political sphere, there is always a dreadful scandal going on somewhere. So we haven't seen that yet, at least to a point that it has destroyed him. So I would say so far he's been doing an excellent job. I would have to go with the 81% of y'all who said that. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And also, I know, and I just started thinking about it because I let it out, and then I just think about what's about to happen in the live chat. I know I just said that dreadful scandal is a thing that goes on here in U.S. politics. That is not aimed at your mindset. I do not want to see someone in the live chat about to insert their political opinion into that comment. It's a blanket statement about everyone in U.S. politics right now. It has nothing to do with a single party or a single person or a single group. So please don't use it that way and then sit there in the live chat and go, yeah, exactly. That's why so-and-so sucks and my side's perfect. Because guess what? Your side's also embroiled in scandals as well. And it's a thing that happens because they're made up, each side is made up of tens of millions of people who are openly active in that political party. And of course, there's going to be scandals. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving into our Super Chat questions yet again, we're starting off with our first one, which goes to Harvey the Drummer. Longtime channel legend, and thank you very much, Harvey, for that $50 support. Very generous. He says, props to your choice of music in the stream countdown card tonight. Several bangers. And I started pre-production on an intro track for y'all, and I'm recording drums over the bomb siren track you use in your 60-second countdown before the stream starts. And LSA.
And LSA. LSA. And thank you so much for the support, Harvey the Drummer. And also, thank you so much for enjoying my choice of music. Just in case y'all are wondering, song number 1 is called The Cossacks Were Riding. And oh boy, they were. Number 2 is Day of Judgment, which sounds like a pretty foreboding name, but then it sounds like Scooby-Doo chase music. And then the third one is the Bayraktar song, which all of y'all know and love. And then the last one is the Ukrainian anthem, an absolute banger of an anthem, and one of the best ones out there in the world. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even saying that just because we're pro-Ukraine. It's actually a pretty solid anthem. And I thank you so much for enjoying them, because you're actually looking, Harvey, into a little bit of my musical tastes. Matthew can tell you that I unironically listen to that music for enjoyment. And, you know, so if you would like that music, you would probably like my mixtape, because my mixtape is fire, I promise you. But, moving on from that, thank you so much for trying to experiment around with our intro and add to it. It's pretty neat to know that we do have amazing and talented musicians like you, Harvey, in the chat, and I hope that our intro gives you hours of plentiful enjoyment, sitting there experimenting with how you can add drum solos and other kinds of things to make it seem that much more fire. And so with that, thank you so much once again, Harvey, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And y'all want to know something, you know, rabbit holing real quick. Y'all want to know something that I saw that is absolute fire?
What's that?
I will show it to you, Matthew. I just discovered this, and I was just blown away with the beauty of this thing. And let me grab it here. I'm trying to pull it up. I'm trying to also filibuster so I can get to a picture of it. But this is a pistol, just to give a little bit of an introduction for it. This was a pistol that was designed by the legend John Moses Browning in 1903, and it's one of the pistols...
Moses?
You know, yeah, John Moses Browning. You heard of him, Matthew? You know, the absolute legend?
I didn't know his middle name was Moses.
Yeah, his middle name was Moses. But I'm trying to find a mint condition picture of this thing, and it's actually a lot harder than you think it would, because they're like over 100 years old. Almost all of them are. Maybe this one will count. No, they're all blurry. Why? Why are you doing this to me, Google? Why? But let me see. Maybe this one. Yeah, here we go. All right, so as some of y'all may know, John Moses Browning didn't design the 1911 overnight. He actually designed multiple pistols before the 1911, and all of them were kind of working towards the 1911 kind of being the culmination of the pistol designs. But then, of course, John Moses Browning upped himself and then made the Browning High Power, which is even better than the 1911 in my personal opinion. Just saying. But one of the pistols that he designed was the 1903 pocket hammerless pistol, which is a very interesting design. It has an internal hammer inside of it, and I think the design is absolutely gorgeous. Look at that, Matthew.
That is quite fine, I must admit. I like the coat, the little horse on the side.
But I gotta say, it's a beautiful pistol, and I hope I can find a better picture. This one would be a nice picture if it wasn't so blurry. Let me see if I can grab this one. Here we go. This one is another Colt 1903 pocket pistol, and these things are just beautiful, especially to be designed in 1903. They shoot a 32 ACP cartridge, a little small, but you know, it still packs a good punch, especially for the size of this pistol. And it's just a neat design. I think it's just absolutely incredible. And what I was thinking, looking at this thing, is that if I can ever get my hands on one of these, I will do a gun review on it. I've seen that a lot of people have ended up doing gun reviews on this thing, and it's got a very interesting history behind it, although many people have never heard about the gun. This was used by a lot of criminals in the 1930s. Matthew, would you like to take a guess at one of the most infamous criminals that used this pistol?
Let's see. Machine Gun Kelly.
Al Capone.
Oh, the tax man.
Yeah, the tax fraud guy. He had this pistol.
Not the killer, the tax fraud man, you know?
Yeah, the tax fraud guy that got syphilis. He had this pistol. He carried it around in his jacket pocket. And also, John Dillinger carried it. And Bonnie and Clyde carried it. It was a pistol used by everyone. And not only that, it was the pistol that was the preferred weapon of choice for the OSS, which is the predecessor to the CIA. It's a really cool pistol, really neat history. Maybe one day I'll be able to try and get my hands on one and see about reviewing it, but I don't know when that would be. But it's still a really neat pistol, and speaking of something that is absolutely cool, flawless, and looks fun. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, Harvey. Just remember, while you were talking about music, and for some reason I just used that as a time to rant about a cool pistol I saw. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for enjoying this channel and helping us to keep this thing rolling.
And next up, we have a super chat from PETA, who puts in a 50-pound donation. And thank you very much, PETA, for the 50-pound. And he says, take a live chat, and whatever route you choose to take with the channel in reference to Ukraine and Israel reporting, you know we will follow. LSA.
And thank you so much for that statement, Peter. Peter, that statement sounded like a martyr statement. You were like, whatever you may do, the LSA is with you. And then you get like executed or something. I was like, dang, man, that sounded like a speech. Like that sounded like a short battle speech. But I got to thank you so much for it. And I thank you for being a diehard member of the Lee Spring Army, Peter. And not only that, supporting this channel and helping us to keep it running. Folks like you who support the channel, put your money where the mouth is when you say wherever the Lee Spring Army goes, well, wherever we go, the Lee Spring Army will follow, because you help us to keep the Lee Spring Army alive through this channel. And so thank you so much once again for the incredible support, Peter, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to do whatever we want to choose. And thanks to support like yours, we'll be able to continue to cover the news, the war in Israel, whether YouTube promotes us or not. And with that,
and thank you for supporting PBS. United, we broadcast.
And with that, thank you once again, and we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Norman Ozen, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Norman, for that support. He says, when Russia targets Ukrainian infrastructure this winter, will Ukraine respond in kind inside Russia?
I don't think they will, because while the Russians may be conducting terrorism in that measure, I don't think the Ukrainians are big fans of doing that unless if it's absolutely necessary to mess with war production, which we have seen in the past. So I don't think we're going to see them respond in kind. I expect that the Ukrainians will not go lower when the Russians go low. They'll probably go high, like they did last year. And so with that,
when they go low, I go lower.
Good one. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Marion Diemert, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Marion, as well for that support. Longtime channel legend. Marion says, we need your coverage of Ukraine. Think of opening a Patreon account. No regulations there.
And thank you so much for the support, Marion. And we actually have a Patreon. It does exist. Usually the link is in the description of our videos, because how we run this channel, our streams run very strictly as far as the monetization goes. We run no ads, we have no sponsors, and we have no Patreon or other ways to pay us on stream. It all goes through YouTube Super Chats. That might start to change in the future due to us being incredibly aggravated with YouTube. We might start trying to find a way like Streamlabs or something to have the monetization go through there instead. Well, more so y'all support go through there instead of through a super chat. But we do have a Patreon, and if y'all want to support it, you can go to the links in our videos and go click down there to our Patreon and be able to support it there. But our videos kind of run on a different monetization idea. Our videos do have ads in them. They're fully monetized, and we also have a link in the Patreon below, and we do plug the Patreon at the beginning of every video. But we don't like to do that on our streams, because I feel like if we do it on our streams, we're kind of commercializing things that are a little brutal. And while we'll laugh about them and joke about them on stream, I still find them a little bit serious enough that I don't like the idea of trying to make people pay for us to show the stuff. But still, thank you for the support, Marion. And if y'all want to support a Patreon, we do have one. Just look in the links of our video descriptions. And with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our next one, we have another super chat from Harvey the Drummer, who this time puts in a $20 donation, and thank you once again, Harvey, for that support. He says, did y'all ever release the video on the power plant in Alabama? And I remember you talking about it maybe a year ago. And no, we never have. And, you know, I can't even remember where the footage went of that, if we even have it anymore. So, you know, sadly, we don't have it. But it would have been a funny one indeed, because I think on one of the footage, reels or something, we had the interaction that we had with that dumb guard that rolled up in the middle of nowhere in the public street and was like harassing us. But no, we don't have it out. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I have to thank you so much for the support, Harvey. And to answer that question, no, we didn't. Matthew largely answered it, but we just never were happy with the final product. We ended up trying to film the video 4 times. We traveled to Huntsville 4 separate times on 4 separate weekends, and we just never ended up being happy with our end product and our footage. So we ended up never releasing the video, and I don't know where that stuff went. Like Matthew said, it's probably somewhere in his computer, maybe in like the archives. I think it honestly got deleted at some point.
Probably deleted.
Yeah, probably deleted, but we never put out the video, sadly. It was one, though, that I wish we did, because, you know, I have a feeling that something is going to happen at that power plant at some point in the future from mismanagement, and we probably would have been able to get to the story first before everyone else if we did that, but sadly, we weren't able to. But I hope that does address that well, and I thank you so much once again for the support, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Ron Wolfson, who puts in a $20 donation. And huge shout out to you, Ron, very much for that support. And he says, thanks, and how many fight erstwhile? I'm not sure what this means. I'm trying to decipher here, but Ron says, how many fight erstwhile? I think they have. It won't let me use the word Hamas.
Really? Interesting. Let's see. How many fighters do you think they have? Fight erstwhile. I don't know what that means. But it won't let me say the word. Okay, so thank you first for the support, Ron. And secondly, we think that the Hamas has around 25,000 active fighters inside the Gaza Strip based off of the last number. But those are very loose assumptions that don't really have a lot of basis to them or backing. But from what I've seen out there with people trying to count up the Hamas fighters, there's approximately 25,000 of them that are currently active in the Strip. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, we needed to grab a live chat question in honor of... let's see here. Who was it in honor of? We need to grab a live chat question in honor of someone. I can't remember who it was, but you know who you are. And sadly, I can't remember. Like, I'm trying so hard to go back and look, but I don't know whose it was. Let me see here. Hold on a second. PETA. That's who it was. We need to grab a live chat for PETA.
Damn.
And this one goes to 420, who says, what is your opinion on PMC Blackwater?
Ooh, what's your opinion on the Waffen SS? Ooh, it's just like, oh man, that's a question. I'm not saying that Blackwater's the Waffen SS, by the way, but they have had a little bit of a checkered past, and that's why they've had to rebrand themselves several times. So, you know, I don't really know. I don't, like, I get mercenary groups, like, they're a thing that's going to always exist, most likely, but at the same time, they usually end up having some tough instances. Sometimes because they don't have the ability to just cover things up like some world militaries do, you know, or some national militaries do. Other times because they don't really follow the rules of engagement that much because, you know, most of them were former soldiers and they already went through that stuff. They didn't really like it. So then they, you know, kind of bend the rules a little bit. I don't know. I have to be honest. I'm going to have to remain undecided on that one. That was a little bit too hot of a question for me to even answer. And so with that, I hate to cop out like that, but, you know, a little bit of a checkered past, but I kind of get why they exist. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Butchie777, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Butchie, for that support. I said, love what you guys are doing, and thanks for keeping me company this morning. And the ex-wife have the dogs for a day, and I'm missing them. The LSA is just the best, and succulent morning juice. And YouTube can shove my 30%.
And thank you so much for the support, Butchie777. And thank you for being one of our British viewers. I hope we have been able to keep you company this morning as you drink your morning coffee over there. And I hope that you've been enjoying the stream. I've got to give a huge credit every time we get support from a European viewer for y'all being up and watching right now. Y'all are here at like 3 and 4 in the morning when we start, especially in the UK, France, and Germany. And I've got to thank y'all so much for just putting in the actual effort to get up that early in the morning and watch this every day. It blows me away that y'all do. And I hate to hear that you're missing your dogs as well, because I couldn't go a day without seeing my beautiful baby corgis. I love them so much. They're precious. And so with that, thank you so much for the support and the kind words. And thank you for saying the Lee Spring Army is the best, as they truly are. And I'm glad to know that so many people have found a home here on the LSA beyond everywhere else. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and the next one goes to Rotormax, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Rotormax. And he says, thanks for all the news updates, guys.
And thank you so much for enjoying our news updates, guys. That's like Zeiss, Matthew, but it's like the off-brand version of Zeiss. But thank you so much once again. It means a lot to us when people always give us words of support because it drowns out the words of hate, which are always out there and always going strong. But y'all know what we think about the haters. Screw the haters. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And good Lord, the results in this poll are shocking the hell out of me. Interesting. We'll have to cover that in just a moment. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat. We have a $10 donation from Richard Philpott, who says Ukraine wants liberty, U.S. wants revolution in Russia.
It's a mutual interest. With that, I hope that does address that well. It's a pretty short answer, but thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, we want the Russians to be destabilized. You know, people always make that sound like we have some kind of evil intent behind that. No, that's just what nations do. We want the Chinese and the Russians to be as weak as possible. The Chinese and the Russians want us to be weak as possible. It's what everyone does. It's what everyone works towards. Putting others down is how you get ahead. Well, at least in the international sphere. Don't do that to your friends, though. That's kind of an asshole thing to do. But with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Patrick Forney, who puts in a 10 and says, the barn is on fire. The Chinese government, we are smoking the bees, smoking them out the barn.
I was on a Type 071 amphibious landing ship with Xi Jinping. Toasty, we burned it. But anyways,
that's awfully specific. What are you hiding something, man?
Sit down.
Just get out with it.
You're a U.S. Senator. Sit down. I don't know why we're
Come on, out with it. Just say it. You don't even know what the hell you're talking about. You're just babbling. Come on, man.
I'm going to tell you, it was fire and fury, the likes of which the Chinese Navy has never seen. Chinese Navy, it's like wonton soup, but in the ship.
But anyways, I got to thank you so much for the support. And I got to say, I like what you're saying there. I like your drift. I get your drift. But still, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much for that support. They said Putin doesn't care about using up his old equipment because he knows it will be obsolete in future wars. But surely Russia would be smarter to manage resources to better defend in the South in summer 2024.
You would think they would be. And while it's true that the stuff is old and outdated, it's the best the Russians will probably ever get for the future. Because they're too poor to really afford new stuff. So what they lose now, even if it is old and outdated, they'll never get it back again, most likely for decades. And so it's a poor decision all around. And they're also not thinking about a long-term strategy at all, even in the short term. Short-term, long-term strategy. Anyways... Excuse me.
Whoa.
I'm dying over here. But thank you so much for the support, AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I would agree, they're not considering really anything long-term or short-term for that matter, as far as their losses go. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, Hoodoo Texas said, I'm approaching 70. Am I old enough to be a senator now? Oh, well, sure. You can be like, Mr. Senator, I would like to... What was I saying again? Could somebody help me out here?
Nah, you could be like this. I'm a Teamster. You want your ass beat? Sit down. You're a U.S. Senator. Sit down.
Man, we can't get political here, but we're gonna move on beyond that.
Listen,
we're gonna move to our.
We're not getting political or anything, Matthew. But whenever I want to see absolute comedy, I just switch over to C-SPAN these days.
Man, C-SPAN, it's like the new Comedy Central.
Dude,
but
wait,
anyways,
hold up.
Yeah.
One more thing, Matthew. The call-ins. Oh my god. The call-ins are so funny because they'll be sitting there. Yes, we have a U.S. Senator here with us today, and we have a caller coming in. What we got? And then the caller will say something like, "Do you suck?" And then they'll cut them off. And they're like, we do not have that here on C-SPAN. You should have more respect. We're moving on. Like, the call-ins are the funnest part of C-SPAN. I think y'all can all agree because it's like fight night every time they turn on the phone. But anyways, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a 7. And happy birthday to you once again, Margaret. She says, please add this to the other super chat. Last year was my 60th birthday, and present was the plague. And this year I'm having surgery, not major or anything. And well, I hope it goes smoothly. That was definitely a shift there, but I hope it goes smoothly for you. And also, once again, happy birthday to you.
And happy 61st birthday to you. And we will add it to the first one. And let me say, I hope the surgery goes well, because while surgeries are minor, I'm always one who's a little apprehensive about surgery, mostly because I've heard a lot of horror stories about any surgeries. I don't mean to freak you out, but that's usually why I'm always apprehensive about any surgery of any kind. And honestly, like it freaks me out. Like I get freaked out, Jerry. But anyways, thank you so much once again for support, Margaret, and happy 61st birthday. And I hope everything's going well on the surgery side of things, and I hope that it's a speedy recovery as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And also up next, Harvey the drummer put in a $10 super chat, and he said, Matt, show us a pic of the drum set, and let me post a drum review of your gear. We know it's next to you in your room. And yes, it is next to me in my room. Actually, it's in front of me. It's over here in front of me to the right. But, Enforcer, if you want to show... Oh, are you good?
Yeah.
What happened?
I just dropped something. Oh, my Lord. It scared
Mr. Senator? Missed me.
It scared the hell out of me. I was trying to move something around on my desk, and it dropped out of my hand and fell on everything. But what were we doing right then, Matthew?
Show him a picture of the drum set. It's in your Discord DM.
Let's see here. Let's take a look. Oh, look at that.
Pull it up.
Man,
Pull it up.
That'd be exquisite. And look at that Ferrari F40 poster up there. We wish.
Man, that Ferrari F40 poster's on the wall. You know, like in that, like, Three Little Piggies story for Disney. They're like the three links on the wall. Yeah, father on the wall.
Oh, man. Dude, Matthew wishes we could have an F40. We'll never get an F40. But
man, those things are like $1.5, $2 million or something.
Dude, so let's see if Whistling Diesel will get one. Has he gotten one yet?
Yeah, hell no.
Man, if he got one of those, I'd be amazed. But anyways, that's Matthew's drum set. It's a Pearl.
Pardon me, wait a minute. Pardon me, girl. What was SpongeBob always saying?
No, it's Mr. Krabs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Me daughter Pearl. That's it, or something like that.
Man, Pearl had a snout on her. I'm telling you.
Man, Pearl came in with the schnoz. I mean, like that's it. She was sniffing. You know, she was like. She had a thing for the white snow, you know, the fine Peruvian blow. But anyways, that's the drum set. I hope you enjoy reviewing it, Harvey the drummer. Thank you so much for the support and asking Matthew to do something like this. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. By the way, y'all, this is how Matthew actually sees the stream, is that I just stream my screen during the show, and that's how he sees what's going on. So if y'all ever wondered how does he see it live, that's how. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. And we are on to the next one.
And also, someone said, Invitali actually said, how long have you played the drums? Well, ever since high school. And also, I saw the Observer say, do you play drums in a full suit and tie? No. But good question. But anyways, moving on to our next one here. While I dismiss this poll, I forgot to get rid of a second ago. Let me get rid of that. There we go. Moving on to our next one. We have a $5 super chat from Howard Buckaloo. And sadly, no comment to address on this one, but Howard, thank you very much for that support, and we do appreciate it very much. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from George Tincher, who says, wishing my LSA family an abundance of blessings and happy Thanksgiving.
And thank you so much for wishing us abundant blessings. We wish you abundant blessings as well. And thank you for telling us to have a happy Thanksgiving. We will try. I don't know if this year we're going to be taking Thanksgiving off. Because, you know, it's just kind of like eating dinner, you know, and it's like dinner at 1 o'clock in the middle of the day, so it's almost like a lunch. So, I don't know, we might run a stream on Thanksgiving this year. But I do thank you so much for wishing us a good Thanksgiving, because we will enjoy it this year. We are going to have, I think, turkey this year. Sometimes we like, and sometimes we alternate in between turkey or ham. And we've had ham some years and turkey others. I think this year we're all kind of on the page that we want turkey with cranberry sauce. And then, you know, we're going to have the dressing and the dinner rolls. I love the dinner rolls. I'm a sucker for dinner rolls. Like if
the stuffing.
If Putin wanted to poison me, Matthew, he would have to put out some fresh homemade dinner rolls, and I'd be dead. Like that's what would happen. But
that can be arranged, I'm sure.
They're taking down notes right now. Poison him, poison him. But let's see. We got dressing. Let's see, sweet potato casserole. I think that yellow gelatin like dessert stuff. I don't know what that's called. I just call it like the green glob. But it's pretty good. It's really good stuff.
Wait a minute. What's this person in the chat talking about? I'm having vulture.
What the hell?
Man, you having vulture? Man, that takes Yardbird to a whole new level, man. You got that trash bird.
Dude, we see vultures eating roadkill. FK70 sees dinner. my man be seeing some nice roast rotisserie out there near that roadkill. But anyways, with that,
man, you haven't Putin for Thanksgiving. That vulture's gonna be on the dinner table this evening.
Man, he be having those vultures from Snow White that give you the mean mug every time they look at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, those vultures had an attitude problem.
Man, those vultures needed to have an attitude fixing, man, because they looked at everyone mean mugging them. It's like, the hell's wrong with you, man? It's like, I'm just trying to get on with my life down here. You're looking at me from that dead, scraggly tree like you're trying to kill my soul. It's like, calm down, bird.
If the enforcer was in the Disney movie, he'd walk by and turn back real hard at those birds and be like, "The hell you looking at?"
Dude, the like dwarves or the elves or whatever the hell they are, they'd be skipping by going, "Hi ho, hi ho," and then I'd be sitting there in the background. You just hear me, "The hell you looking at?" You just hear that as they're singing their song. But anyways, thank you so much.
Man, then the dwarves pull out their phones and start filming and go, "World Star, it's a fight."
World Star to get him, put in reverse, Terry. But anyways, thank you so much for wishing us a good Thanksgiving. We're going absolutely insane tonight, but I'm having a fun time with it. I hope y'all are having a fun time with it too. But with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to CK Bold, who puts in a 5. And CK Bold says, take a live chat question. And we shall. And also in the meantime, shout out to DB as well, who put in a $5 donation. He didn't put in a comment, but thank you very much, DB, for that support. And CK Bold, you are actually segueing us into our live chat segment. And we're going to take that live chat first, which goes to Little Chi 721. He says, tell us more about the ceasefire in Gaza.
So the ceasefire in Gaza, from what we understand right now, these are the following terms and conditions. The ceasefire consists of a 5-day ceasefire, and every day 10 hostages are going to be released by Hamas. This ensures that Hamas will have some kind of an active reserve of hostages until the final day. That will ensure that Israel upholds their end of the ceasefire. The Israelis are going to cease all combat activities during that 5-day period, as well as Hamas as well, to allow for the exchange of these hostages. In the meantime, we are probably expecting to see that Hamas forces will use the moment to move around their forces and their equipment, so that way the next time the Israelis begin engaging them, they will be kind of caught off guard. We also assume that the Israelis will be trying to keep as much of a handle on surveillance and intelligence gathering as best as possible given the circumstances over those next 5 days, so that way they can kind of counteract the moves that Hamas is going to be making during this week. We know that Benjamin Netanyahu has also declared that once the 5-day ceasefire is over, the war will begin like it was before. And we're also probably going to be seeing that an offensive operation by the Israelis into the area of southern Gaza, specifically Han Yunis, may be underway after that 5-day ceasefire, although that's more so of a rumor at this point than anything. But I hope that that kind of addresses all the information we have at the moment surrounding this 5-day ceasefire, because that is everything. Just like brain vomiting everything I had about the ceasefire. I think that's about everything I could think of. And so, thank you so much, CK Bull, for sponsoring that live chat, and I hope we were able to answer it well. And due to time constraints, and I hate to say this every night, but we are going massively over time again tonight by about 15 to 20 minutes or so. We are going to be answering 5 live chat questions, not 3, but 5, and then we're going to be rounding out tonight's stream. And so with that, we are on to the first one.
All right, and back to our super chats real quick. We have a 5 from Neil Viznon, who says, "You think you've heard horror stories about surgeries? Haha, sit down, son."
And thank you so much for the support, Neil. And I promise you something, Neil. I know you probably have some good horror stories, but believe me, we have heard some terrible ones. We've heard of people bleeding out of everywhere until they died in the middle of a hospital for like hours. It's been some really horrendous stuff. I mean, we've heard things that are so terrible on such basic things, like someone goes into the hospital with like some chest pains and then they just drop dead because someone gave them the wrong medicine and they bled to death. I mean, it's horrendous stuff. It's terrifying things, and that's why, like, I'm scared of surgery, because when you hear about things going wrong, they go terribly wrong. But, you know, I mean...
They go wrong.
They go wrong. But, you know, I mean, you know, there's a lot of great doctors out there. It's just that, like everything, a few bad stories can really turn you off of everything about it. But still, thank you so much for the support, Neil. And I would be scared to hear your stories, because they're worse than ours, like that one right there. And I'm not even getting into like explicit detail on it, just kind of giving a general overview. That would be terrifying. But with that, we are back into the live chats, and we are on, I think, the 4th to last one of the night.
All right, and we also have our Morse code decoders of the stream. We have Mark Hodges was the only one tonight to solve it, and he says tonight's Morse reads, Russia is getting the whipping that a many a raucous country needs. Long live the LSA, Slava Ukraine, and Slava LSA.
I mean, we're starting to overtalk each other trying to get through this, but that's the start of money. And we got this dead on the, y'all got this. You got this, Mark Hodges, dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I got to thank you so much for being the Morse code decoder of the night, the absolute hero, and getting that Morse code message correct. You've done that for 636 days, and hopefully for as many more days the war lasts. And so with that, thank you for getting the Morse code message correct, and we are on to the fourth to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Creation, who says, what do you think about the chaos in the Middle East potentially being Maskirovka?
I don't know what Maskirovka means.
I don't know either.
Man, I don't
know.
know.
With that, we're going to move on to the next one because I don't know what that means. The next one goes to Brian Kramer, who says, thoughts on going to a different platform that allows the First Amendment?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Because really, no platform believes in the First Amendment, and I've got to kind of be honest with y'all. I kind of get it. I mean, I'm a big proponent of protecting First Amendment speech on a government level and in public areas, but on the internet, it is very hard to allow freedom of speech on most private platforms because people take advantage of that really quickly. And I can just list off a couple of places, and you can kind of take it for what it is. Tumblr. Many of y'all remember back then, Tumblr was a cesspit of terrible things because it really allowed anything to go and had no moderation. And you kind of run into that on the internet because, to be honest with y'all, a lot of crazy people hang out on the internet. The Lee Spring Army is kind of an exception, and it's also because we banned a lot of the crazy people who would come in here. But there are a lot of crazies out there that will ruin the ability to have free speech. They'll either terrorize people, dox them and stuff like that, and run them away, things like that. So I get why companies do that, but at the same time, it's never great when they do it against what you believe in. For example, supporting Israel. It appears that YouTube isn't really a big fan of that. But I wish we could, but I'm trying to think of a platform that really does support, free speech unmoderated, but there really isn't even one. Like Twitter, Twitter was brought under new management. They said, oh, we're going to, make sure to exercise free speech. They don't. They just kind of changed what the acceptable speech is. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And, I'm unhappy with what YouTube's doing, but at the same time, they do have the right as a private company to do it. And if we go somewhere else, it's not going to be free speech. It's just going to be a different set of rules of what is acceptable speech according to the private company that runs the platform. But with that, we are on to the next one. I think it's
all right.
And
yes, it is. And up next, shout out to Paul Schultz, who also solved the Morse code tonight. He apparently put it in so early that I didn't catch it. So tonight it was Mark Hodges and Paul Schultz. So I'll make sure he gets his credit in there. And thank you very much to both of you for solving that Morse. And moving on to our next question here, we have one from Jeffrey Cohn, who says, what are the consequences for Ukraine if the U.S. Congress cuts off aid?
It probably will be that we'll see a lot of Ukrainian offensive operations or military operations slow down a decent amount, but it appears that the Europeans are starting to finally pick up the pace and start supporting them a larger amount because of that. So in the end, it may not be that detrimental. But with that, I hope that does answer that fairly well, and we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Andrew, who says, as China is supporting Russia, do you reckon it is worth supporting Tibetans to rebel against the Chinese dictatorship?
I don't really think there is a lot of potential in Tibet anymore. We kind of made the Dalai Lama a thing, hoping that an overthrow of the Chinese rulership, the Chinese subjugation of Tibet would happen, but it never did, and it never ended up being successful. I don't think it would be that beneficial to do something like that. I honestly think that there's a lot more potential to be had in the Han Chinese of the eastern part of the country in an uprising than there is in the western part of the country. But nevertheless, I don't think the Chinese are supporting the Russians that heavily because we're seeing very few things that are Chinese inside of Ukraine. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who threw in that lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Let's see here. It's going to be Eugene Minton, who says any chance a chopper was trying to land on it, but crashed, causing fuel to dump into the ship and catching other areas on fire, in reference to the Chinese warship.
It's certainly possible. We didn't see what appears to be an active fire on the deck. It appears to be smoke billowing out from inside of the superstructure, maybe suggesting that the fire is further inside the ship. Walter A. Lakota, who's the OG Ellison bosun of the channel, and also a huge expert in maritime concerns, said that it may have been a turbo fire inside of the engine room, which I think is a pretty plausible explanation, but it could have possibly even been a fire from a helicopter inside of the hangar of the ship that then spread throughout the superstructure. So it may possibly be a helicopter fire, who knows? But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching. At the peak, there were 5.25 thousand of y'all, and nearly 23,000 of y'all have watched this stream by the time it's rounding out. I got to thank all of y'all so much once again for finding this channel to be a quality source of news and enjoying our coverage on the war. If you have and you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment, because it helps this channel to continue to grow and to continue to spread our word to more people. We will also be making sure to continue on our coverage in the Middle East due to popular demand, and I thank everyone for y'all's support through the super chats to this channel, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running due to the kind of news that we cover. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, God bless America, God bless Israel, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. Thank you all for another great stream. We'll see you all tomorrow, and thank you all for another great stream. Like I said twice, and Slava Ukraine, and Slava Israel, and good night.
Yes.
The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю